Excellent connection. Excellent connection. Here we go. Whoopsh, 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 whoopsh. I gotta tell you, I'm actually doing pretty good today. I've been really, really worried that the channel was going to stagnate, that YouTube was going to put its boot in my back. I've been talking about it for the last week, especially after David Dole did his National Post thing, but still growing, right? Keep... This season's weird, too. There's not really much by way of news going on, right? Like, there's nothing really important happening in, like, big or significant ways. Because all of the power players also, like, they go on vacation, right? They go on vacation. So it's literally just like, we sit here and twiddle our thumbs and waiting for the people who actually have power to do something important, right? Like, and we're just sitting around waiting for things to go on. So this this episode's gonna be more me, I think. But that's fine. I'm here for you and you're here for me, and together we make something that resembles a show, I guess, right? I've been thinking about that, actually. Like, all I think I need to do is create, like, a graphic. Just some kind of thing at the beginning, and then, like, I'm officially, like, a show, right? Like, some people have described what I'm doing as just like, oh, you're just, like, doing, like, a daily diary. And I'm like, if all I did is just do, like a little graphic at the beginning, like, hey, I'm the Canadian commie, ba-da-ba, right? And then suddenly I'm what? Like, suddenly I'm actually, like, doing a real show? I don't know. What's the difference between what I'm doing here and just, like, what, like, the some more news guy is doing, right? I guess writing, I suppose, all of that. You know what I'd really love to get? I'd really love to get those Google glasses that can, so you can actually, like, put a screen on your glasses, right? And then I'd love to write something and then have the text right in front of me so that I could do my normal walk and talk videos, except I could actually have something written. That would be cool. I've even thought about, like, I could do, like, an audio, like, write something, do an audio of it, and then, like, have, like, an earbud, and then have, like, the lines be fed, and I say the lines as I hear them. Like, that kind of thing. But I don't know. Would it matter? Like, would it matter? I feel like part of the thing that really makes my show work is that it's just, like, I'm just constantly speaking from the heart. I'm just constantly speaking from, like, my inner self, just observing what's happening and then saying it. And, I don't know, seems like it's working, so why should I question the formula? Guys, this journey to 1,000 subscribers, I told you, I've been telling you the whole time, I told you back when I only had 200 subscribers, back when I had 500 subscribers, I told you, the journey from 900 to 1,000 is going to absolutely be the worst. I'm going to question everything. It's just going to be self-loathing and doubt the whole time. Every decision I make is just going to be riddled with anxiety and ridiculous. And ultimately, none of it will matter because I feel like the thing that's propelling this show forward is not actually anything like that I'm deciding on an individual level. It's just I'm the guy that's actually standing up and talking about what is happening with the most clarity. I think that's really all it comes down to, is like I'm willing to put aside all of the bullshit and take the jump and take the leap into the absolute absurdity that is, like, what the fuck is all of this? Like, what the fuck is this ridiculous, absurdist nonsense that we're all participating in for some reason? Like, we're literally participating in this? Why? Why are we participating in any of this? And yet we do. Every day we just, like, wake up and we're like, well, off to participate in the destruction of the human species. Like, it's just like totally blisteringly, like, confusing. And I just don't see other people talking about it the way that I talk about it. So this is just the longest form way of me saying I just need to chill the fuck out. I just need to chill the fuck out. Things are going to happen as they happen. The channel will continue to grow because I am filling a niche without a doubt. No one talks the way that I talk. No one has the voice that I have. No one has the perspective that I have. And I just need to calm the fuck down, keep doing what I'm doing, stop worrying about the day-to-day, stop worrying about like, yesterday I had 835 subscribers and I've got 134. The channel is ruined. But it's so tough, right? It's so tough. Love the graphics. Perfect. This is just something I found. Good to see you, Carrie. Good to see you. Yeah, capitalism does not solve poverty. Capitalism creates poverty and then criminalizes it. That's how it works. Hey, Onward, how you doing? Don't look up. Don't look up. Absolutely. I'm going to talk more about Don't Look Up because I'm going to be referring to that movie probably for the rest of my life, right? The comment's going to hit. Like we're going to get hit by that comment. We see it coming. It's like 500 miles away. We can see it. It's obvious, right? We're going to get hit with that comment, right? Yes, I love the Bronterocs. They seem like a very wise and noble race. That is an interesting aspect. Okay. Nova Scotia? Then I'm not going to talk. No spoilers then. No spoilers. For you, Nova Scotia. For you. I was about to get into some spoilers, but I will step back off of it because I do think that everybody needs to sort of experience it as it happens. And there are all kinds of things. Like, I really, really want to rip that movie apart. Like, and I don't mean rip it apart like, this is the flaw and this is the thing. Like, for real, like, when I was in university, like, I have a minor in film, right? And when I was in university, I loved to deconstruct film. Like, that's what I did. I remember when I first watched Donnie Darko, right? I watched Donnie Darko 3 times in one night, right? And then broke it apart shot by shot and wrote an essay on the film Donnie Darko in a shot by shot kind of perspective. And I want to do the same thing to Don't Look Up. I think Don't Look Up is absolutely... Like, I've been raving about Arcane and its storytelling, but it's like that same, the same kind of level of storytelling in Don't Look Up, except the stakes are as high as it could possibly be. And I have already called Don't Look Up a masterpiece, and the number one piece of feedback that I've gotten back from people is, I don't know, you might be overstating it with masterpiece, bud. Like, masterpiece? I'm like, we are still going to be talking about Don't Look Up in 10 years, at least, right? And compared to the other schlock that has come out from this society, right? Like, we're not going to talk about, like, Avengers Endgame in 10 years. Like, maybe you'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember Avengers Endgame, right? And all of that superhero shit, we are going to look back on and like, we're going to be cringy about it. Like, we're going to look at it and be like, ooh, oh, God, I can't believe that was the thing that we were doing. Ooh, really? Like, it's so juvenile and childish and reductive and like like a glorification of fascist psychopaths. Like, it's obvious and overt. Like, the idea that, like, people, like, literally people are like, Tony Stark sacrifices himself and oh my God, what a and I'm like, Tony Stark was a fucking arms dealer whose entire story arc is instead of selling weapons, I become the weapon. And like 90% of the time, Tony Stark is solving his own problems, right? The Avengers are like literally in like Age of Ultron, they're fighting against Tony Stark's creation. Like, it's just a total fucking embarrassment. And there's like no sense of self-awareness, no sense of like actual commentary on this, right? Like, the film simply doesn't care about like any kind of systems that are responsive to the people. Like, nobody cares about that. There's so many cool Easter eggs in the film, too. It took me over 3 hours to watch it. Well, and the thing that I think is really cool about Don't Look Up is that even bit roles, like every role in that film is actually filled by someone of prominence, right? Like everybody that is on film, it's not just like, let's go get an extra no-name person. It's literally like, the fellow that played like the commish is the Fox News guy. That's the one that really stands out. It's like, oh, here's like a pretty prominent actor. He was like the Thing in the Fantastic Four or any of this kind of stuff. I can't think of his name offhand, but that drives me crazy. But so like everybody involved in the project was obviously like, this is an important film. Like, this is an important film. And like Meryl Streep is so good in that film. Like, Meryl Streep is like one of the greatest actors of our generation. Like, she's unbelievably good. Like, she's unbelievably good. She's tapped into something magical as a person, right? I say that, and the Cate Blanchett, same story, right? Cate Blanchett is absolutely brilliant in that film. Everybody is like it's the thing that is so masterful about DiCaprio's performance in this film, Don't Look Up, is that like we have seen him as like a psychopathic slave owner in Django. We've seen him so like just this loathsome person. We've seen him as like the Wolf of Wall Street, where he's actually like this charismatic businessman type who we actually like really actually quite like in the end. We've seen him like on the Titanic, right? We've seen him as Jack on the Titanic, just like a lovable roguish dude. But here is a time where he's playing kind of like a nerd, right? He's playing like kind of like a nerdy dweeb, right? And it's perfect. Like, he's perfect at it. Like, you really get from this guy that he's like, I know people exactly like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, I know that guy, right? And in that way, he just captures this idea of the everyman, that while he's an astronomer and he's in this sort of position of the specialized kind of position, like, you would talk to this guy and you're just like, yeah, like, I know this guy, right? Like, he's just sort of a dweebish, like, no-name nobody, right? But he's being played by one of the, like, great actors of the generation. And Jennifer Lawrence is exactly the same, right? Like, I know that woman. Like, I've met that woman. And she just, she captures the sort of exhausted existentialism of our generation, right? They're just like, oh, whatever, right? Like, the kind of like, why shouldn't I act this way? Why shouldn't I do this, right? And the guys collecting trash with DSNY on their uniforms. I've missed that. I don't even know what you're talking about there. But like, it's. I got a big shout out. One of the things I really got a shout out that no one's going to talk about. I loved Tyler Perry in this film. Like, I don't watch much of Tyler Perry's stuff. But Tyler Perry was so good in this film, in the role that he had. He plays one of the media people. He plays one of the like, it's Cate Blanchett's character, and then Tyler Perry is sort of like her foil. And there's this one shot while DiCaprio is going on a rant, right? No, I'm not trying to spoil it, but there's this shot of Tyler Perry that really, really shows that, like, his character, while DiCaprio is going on this, like this newsroom level rant of, like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? This, like, iconic sort of moment that is somewhat reflected in this moment with Leonardo DiCaprio, and they have a shot of Tyler Perry's character, and he just has a look on his face, like a little smile, and you can really tell that that Perry's character is kind of embarrassed on behalf of DiCaprio. That while DiCaprio is expressing this, like, we are all gonna die, like, this is a huge thing, all Tyler Perry's character can care about, all this guy can care about, is the decorum, is the is sort of the mask that and they constantly are talking about that throughout the entire film, right? How people need media training, right? And there's this presentation aspect of it, and that the media's presentation has become so much more important than actually having serious conversations about serious issues, right? That what matters more than talking like fucking adults is maintaining this image. And if the image is broken, the people involved in the process of maintaining the image are so invested in the illusion, are so invested in the falseness, that they're not concerned about the real event. They're more concerned about the breaking of the illusion. And it was just like this perfect moment that Tyler Perry really, really, really captured. Like, it's just like the cut to him and the expression he had and the sense of just like, oh my goodness, how embarrassing for Leonardo DiCaprio's character, how embarrassing for him. That it's such a small moment, but like, mwah, like mwah, 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 really, really shows you like and that's what I love about film, and that's what I love about these things, is that like a single 1 second shot can completely flip the dynamic of a character and of a person, right? That's the power of the whole thing, that in many ways it's like a puzzle, and like that puzzle really, really exists in the character Meryl Streep's president. Like, is she a Democrat or is she a Republican? That's going to be a big talking point and a big thing that people are really, really going to discuss, because it's never explicitly stated. Is she a Republican or is she a Democrat? And they've done such a brilliant job, in my view, of threading the needle and being like, okay, like, first of all, Meryl Streep is a woman, right? Hillary Clinton, right? It was the most likely female candidate, right? But you also did have like, you've got people like, for God's sake, Sarah Palin, right? So she's kind of on a both sides sort of thing. And there's this one shot where they show a picture of Meryl Streep hugging Bill Clinton. And you're like, that looks very Democrat. Like, that looks very Democrat, right? But then, like, the dynamic between Meryl Streep and her son, Jonah Hill, played by Jonah Hill, like, it's all very kind of Republican in the way that it is. But at the end of the day, like, she exists not as a Republican or a Democrat, but just as an aspect of the political system itself. That the film is really working overtime to not pick a political side as a Democrat or a Republican. And they achieve it, in my view. They make it happen. Yeah, the amalgamation, exactly, Aziel. The amalgamation. Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you, Aziel. Good to see you, Vince. Right? Don't look up. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. Came off as too much DNC neo-lib. I think I disagree with you. Just flatly. I just disagree with you. The entire point of the film is to like, it's a scathing indictment of the political and neoliberal establishment. It is a scathing indictment of the DNC, of neoliberalism itself. Like, it is a complete scathing indictment. The only critique I have of this film from a communist perspective is that no one at any point was taking seriously the idea that we have to surround the halls of power. Like, we need to gather up as many people as we can and surround the halls of power. That this idea of, like, people gathering and rallying was left to the political establishment. That there was no, like, I think there was like one shot where one guy involved in the process was trying to get people together to protest, but it obviously wasn't serious. It wasn't a big part of the narrative at all. And that was one aspect of the film that I really think, like, no, dude, like, if there was genuinely, like, a comet coming that you could see and the political establishment was, like, not really doing anything about it, I just and like you had like scientists screaming like the president is lying and like all this kind of stuff. I genuinely do think that um, there would be a moment where the halls of power would be surrounded. I just think that in a very deep human way, I just don't think humanity would actually do nothing or devolve into riots or devolve into that kind of like from the chaos there would come this surrounding of the White House, right? And they just never did that. And that's where I think they had to have very much on purpose drawn that line. Like on purpose, they had to say, we are not going to show imagery of this. We are not going to show imagery of people surrounding the halls of power. We're not going to do that on purpose. Because I do think, like, you know, there is such a thing as a bridge too far. And in Hollywood and in, like, the political establishment. And, like, but what's so funny is that, like, in today's political climate, this idea that, like, we should surround the halls of power, like, that's considered a real taboo, as illustrated in this film because they didn't include it, right? It's something that obviously would happen. It obviously would happen, right? They didn't include it. And even though it's already happened several times in the past, right? During the civil rights movement, in the 60s, the hippies, right? They were surrounding the White House during the Great Depression. In the 30s and 40s, right? They were surrounding the White House. So there's precedent. It's something that has happened, but you can't. Hollywood is not ready to have a film where its protagonists are involved in a public uprising that surrounds the halls of power. That's my one critique of this film. That what they did took a lot of courage and a lot of effort, and it is the culmination of several of those artists' like careers, in my view. Like someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, who is renowned for his work with climate change issues, like the World Wildlife Federation, like all of this kind of stuff. He's 100% an environmentalist. Like, this is the culmination of his life's work, like without a doubt. I have never seen a film that has worked so hard to attempt to push the Overton window back to the left, right? And the only reason it gets created at all, is because several of these artists wanted to have it made, right? Someone like Leonardo DiCaprio wanted it to be made. And like the neoliberal establishment, they don't want this movie, right? They don't want this movie to exist. Right? Why would they want this movie to exist? It's done more damage to their narrative than 10 years of the populace scrabbling around attempting to make sense of what's going on. Right? Here is exactly what I would do if I was a communist attempting to convince people that we have been taken over by a psychopath class that is absolutely just going to let climate change destroy the planet, right? I would go to my conservative and neoliberal friends, right? And I would be like, hey, you guys want to see this cool disaster movie, right? Leonardo DiCaprio's in it, right? Like, it looks like a fun, good time, just like a popcorn movie, right? And I'd just like sit them down and we'd all like watch it, right? And then at the end of them, when we were talking about it, I would just say to them like, yeah, the comet is climate change. Like, it's coming, it's going to hit us. Like, Don't fool yourself. And I would essentially just use that film as the basis for communicating with these delusional nitwits, right? Like these conservatives and liberals, these people who absolutely refuse to acknowledge reality, who absolutely seem to think that their leaders do care about them for some reason. And I just 100% would just use the film as the basis for my communication with them. And when real world events happened, I would say to them like, oh yeah, it's just like that movie. It's just like Don't Look Up, eh? Remember and Don't Look Up when this happened? Right? And that would be the only way I would communicate with these like people who are still in denial. Like, the people who are still in denial about what's happening need a movie like this. They need a movie like this. Right? Yes, that's another part of it actually, Vince, is that I think they did work to try to make it look um like a COVID thing too. Right? I keep talking about it from the climate change angle, but you're coming in from it from the COVID angle, which I think is actually you can create an analysis of Don't Look Up from the COVID angle, right? Because like, and you can create the idea that it's a fantastical retelling of the COVID narrative, right? Yeah, Leonardo being Fauci, right? Streep is Trump, right? The comet is COVID. But what I think I would respond to with that is that like it it's fundamentally a disaster movie. The comet can be any disaster you like, right? Whether it be COVID, whether it be climate change, right? Like it, because it's this fantastical, unstoppable, inevitable event, right? A comet coming towards Earth, then you can just replace the comet with anything you like. And the story still works, which is its strength, right? Which is why it's such a powerful story, because it's fundamentally a story about how this society responds to these disasters and these crises. And there was a narrative that happened right at the beginning of COVID, when everybody saw that the political class was bungling everything, right? That everything was just being completely bungled. That people were saying like, don't the way that they're responding to COVID is exactly how they're going to respond to climate change, right? And so here's a film that's like, yeah, the way they respond to COVID is how they're going to respond to climate change, right? But and Vince, what you're saying here, I love political movies, but to me it was very pro-Hillary whilst maintaining an anti-establishment message. But I don't know, it just came off as too on the nose. Can I tell you? I really, 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 really hate this statement. Like, and no offense to you, Vince, but like this idea of it's too on the nose. Have you met the populists recently? Have you seen these guys? Right? When you're in a fight, where do you want to put it? You want to put it right on the fucking nose. Right on the fucking nose. I fuck this idea that art needs to be like subtle and a grazing pedal across the face so that a person can interpret their feelings onto the screen. On the nose! Fuck them up! Fuck these people! These people that are walking around saying like, climate change, I don't think we need to worry about it. Oh yeah, our political class is still working for us. They're still on our side. Yeah, I love Donald Trump. Donald Trump's gonna really go in there and drain that swamp is what Donald Trump's gonna do. Yeah. Or at the same side of like, yeah, Hillary Clinton, she's a girl boss. She's gonna go in there and make everything better. If it wasn't for these Republicans, right? Right on the nose. Right on the fucking nose. It's where it needs to be. It's where it needs to be. If you're not putting it right on their fucking nose, if you're not going, they're not gonna notice. These people think that there is a wizard coming back at any moment. He's gonna go, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. And he's going to put people, right? He's going to put some people on one side and other people on the other side. And of course, if you're one of these fucking Christians, white people here, brown people here, right? And he's going to put a little line between them. He's going to light one of those sides on fire, right? And like these people need to have it right on the fucking nose. And so when you say to me, I don't know if I cared for it because it was a bit on the nose, I think that's the greatest success of the film. That it just was not pulling its punches. It was straight up like, yeah, this is what's happening. Get fucked. Get fucked. Squid Game is a good one. Squid Game is a good one just from a like even if you don't watch it for the political commentary, it's still just a good movie. Like or a good show. Like that's the thing that I think is really great about Squid Game is that it really does just like it's just fascinating from a character level. You know, the strength of the film is that no, I'm not mad, Vince. I don't care. I just like I've been in the arts for a long time. I have a degree in theater. Like I've done theater. Like I've done film and television. I've done these things, right? And this idea of like, oh, you don't want it to be too on the nose. Well, if it's not on, like, have you met these people? Like, have you seen The Populace recently? Right? If you don't put it on the nose, they're not gonna they're not gonna pay attention to it, right? And B, they will misinterpret it. Like if you try to like make it like elusive and like, oh yeah, then they are going to misinterpret it on purpose. They will purposefully misinterpret it. So you can't play that game these days. That's over. On the nose. If it's not on the nose, then you're not really making art anymore. You're just sort of jerking off in the corner. Ugh. Squid Game's a great one. Parasite's another good one. Parasite is, I think, more along the lines of what Vince is talking about, where it's like, it has that kind of subtlety, where if all you wanted to do is sit down and watch, like, and be like, oh, here's a group of individuals individualizing their individualism, right? And you refused to acknowledge the existence of systems, and you refused to acknowledge, like, that they live in a society and that there's a structure or any of that. If all you wanted to do is sit down and watch it from like that perspective of individualism, Parasite is like a perfect film for that, right? Because then it's just a really interesting story about characters, right? It's overtly anti-capitalist without specifically being anti-capitalist, yeah. But I would prefer a more overtly anti-cap movies, not gonna lie. Well, and Parasite was great because it was the first, it is one of those turning point movies, right? That it really showed Hollywood and capitalist marketers, you know, the money, it really showed them that, yeah, if you tell a story that focuses on poor people struggling in capitalist societies, they will do well, right? Like that's an important turning point, because like people these days, people are caught in this idea that, yeah, if you show homelessness, if you show poverty, if you show the reality of these things, people are gonna not be interested in that, right? In this Western, like, take a look at the superhero movies, right? There's no such thing as a homeless person in these movies. They don't exist. They're invisible, right? And that's on purpose, right? Everything's got to be glitz and glamour. Everything's got to be like Kim Kardashian, right? Like, everything's just about the extravagant, grotesque showing of wealth. It's just about this overwhelming wealth. And so this idea, yeah, billionaire Batman saves everyone, exactly. Like, the people with money are good, right? And Parasite was the first sort of film that was like, no, like, there are poor people who are trying to make a go of it in the society. Here they are. Here's what they have to do. Here's what they do, right? And with Parasite, it's such a delicately made film that you can really tell that, like, if you wanted to be like a rich guy looking at that film being like, oh, these dingy poors come in and scam this productive family, you can totally do that. You can totally do that with Parasite, right? Like, who is actually worse in that film? Like, who, like, just from a straight up individualist perspective, who are the people who do the worst things, right? I can completely see somebody watching Parasite and just being like, that poor wealthy family just got totally taken advantage of. They were trying to do nice things. They're a productive family that are trying to help society, and this poor family comes in and just takes advantage of them and kills them. What? Right? Like, you could 100% have that perspective watching Parasite. Like, no doubt. And that's both the strength and the weakness of the film. Marvel movies are trash. They are co-developed by Raytheon and Honeywell. CIA reads the scripts, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why they're all fascist propaganda, right? They can show people suffering under capitalism in movies, but the solution is often egoism rather than collectivism, personal effort, discipline, education, self-improvement, etc. Exactly, Grinning. I think you're right about that. That we've gotten to a point now where, okay, fine, yeah, we can't deny that there are people suffering under the system, but we cannot ever address a solution to it in a serious way. That it like, and that goes as far back, like, go watch Chaplin, right? Go watch Charlie Chaplin, right? Like, Charlie Chaplin is like the quintessential, like, he was always talking about poverty. Poverty was absolutely central to what Charlie Chaplin was doing. He himself being the tramp, right? A homeless man trying to make his way in a capitalist society, constantly ruddering up against police officers, constantly doing tricksterish behavior, trying to find a one-up on people, constantly ruddering up against marketeers, capitalists, but you always rooted for him. You were always on his side. You were always thinking to yourself, like, boy, I hope this guy gets ahead. And there's a really, really, one of the really powerful films that was made with this character of the tramp was called City Lights. And in City Lights, Charlie Chaplin's character, the tramp, encounters a beautiful young blind woman who is of like a middle class status, and they encounter each other randomly on the street and start to build a relationship with one another, right? And Charlie Chaplin's character wants to buy her a gift, like wants to get her just flowers or something for her birthday. And so he goes and like joins like a boxing fight, like does all kinds of extravagant things in order to attain the wealth. Sorry, it's not the wealth required in order to buy her a gift. It's to so that she can regain her sight, right? That's the whole crux of the film, is that he does all of this stuff so that he can get enough money so that he can help her regain her sight, right? And through his actions, he as well as the actions of her collective community, he helps her regain her sight. And then right at the end of the film, the very last scene is Chaplin smiling at her as she has regained her sight, and her looking at him with compassion and empathy and a type of love. But there's a full understanding that she knows that their relationship will never occur because he is a homeless man and she is of a different class. It's an incredibly powerful statement that I've never seen in the modern era. I've never seen anyone say anything as powerful as what was said in City Lights. That if you are poor in this society, you will never have a relationship with anyone who is in a class above you. It simply doesn't happen. And that class-based relationship dynamic is completely excluded from the conversation. And it takes a true artist like Charlie Chaplin to express it. Yeah. Oh, I really don't like Ford. Yeah. No kidding, eh? Egoism is a dead end. You can't blame a fish for being sick in a polluted pond. Exactly, right? But you can't have a conversation about the structure, right? That's why they're working so hard to convince everybody that it's about your individualism, right? That like bullshit like The Secret or Jordan Peterson's like author your own fate, that kind of nonsense, because it's all about individualizing your own individual, manifest your own destiny, right? Like you are the author of your own story, like this kind of like high level like fascist propaganda, honestly, that comes out of the mouth of like Oprah, right? And like it's complete delusion, right? It's a total delusion. Like if 100 people attempt to do the same thing, it is inevitable that one of them will be successful. And the reason for their success is that they are successful. Like, that's it. Like, there's no... That in retrospect, people always try to justify why they were the best. But the reality is that they weren't the best. They're just the one that did it. Like, that's it. Right? Like, it has nothing to do with best or not. In a way, it's kind of like an inversion of like the survivor's guilt, right? That people, when a catastrophe occurs, the people who survived it have something called survivor's guilt, and they ask themselves, why was I spared while others died, right? And they try to come up for rationales for it, but the reality is that there is no rationale. You survived because you survived, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the story, right? There is no rationale to it. There is no like logical thing that you can find. There's nothing to hang your hat on in the conversation. You survived because you survived. And it's the same story with people like Oprah and Peterson and all this shit. It's like you're here because you're here. There's no like, you can't like logic it. And like it's the most arrogant position to take, to be like this self-aggrandizing position of like, yes, I'm here because I'm the best. Yeah, of course the winner of the competition, like of which there needs to be an inevitable winner, right, is going to say that they're the best. And that's how they frame it. And it's just total arrogance and self-aggrandizement. Have a good one, Grinning. Good to see you, bud. Yeah, go, for real. Like, everybody needs to see Don't Look Up. I think it's a powerful film. Yeah, or collective rage devolves into chaos, like in Joker. Yeah. Like, Joker, to me, was more of a, like, this is what happens when you abandon people. Like, that to me is sort of the central theme of Joker. That if you abandon people like this, they will rebel against your system in like, they'll abandon you back. And the power of Joker is that at the end of the film, like, there isn't really a turning point for him, right? There isn't a moment where you think to yourself, he's gone too far. Like, yeah, he became unhinged, certainly. Like, he shoots a man in front of cameras and then dances about it, right? But you don't turn on him, right? Like, you don't think he's like this extravagant psychopath villain, right? Like, you're on his side the whole time. That's the power of Joker. Is you completely understand why a person would devolve in such a way, given the circumstances that are around him. And Joker really, really puts a thumb in the eye of the individualists. Because the individualists would be like, well, that guy should just individualize his individualism to individualize his individualism. And the response is, he did. That's the response. That Arthur takes control of his own life and starts to author his own fate. He does everything that these individualists tell him to do, right? He took control of his own life, and he acted in a way that he thought was completely reasonable given the circumstances that he found himself in. In many ways, Joker is like an individualist icon. That if you are like this individualist and you're an individualist fundamentalist, the way that like Peterson is, well, your icon is Joker. Like, he is a man who was getting beat up, right? He was getting beat up by his circumstances, and he stood up straight with his shoulders back, and he fought back. and he refused to allow that system to define him. Right? He's the ultimate individualist. Hi everyone, Italy is enacting a basic income of 780 euros because there are not enough jobs in their countries to support everyone. I mean, isn't that the goal, Ruth? First of all, good to see you, Ruth. And hot tip coming from Ruth. Italy basic income program. Let's take a look. The citizens' income here we go. What they're calling the citizens' income for the poor, blah blah. Like, technology is making it so that this labor we're doing is not really relevant, right? Like, that's been the narrative for the last 100 years. Like, we used to have, everybody used to do agriculture in our society. Like, not that long ago. Everyone in our society did agriculture. Not that long ago. Like 80 to 90%. It is now 2%. Okay? 2% of the society. 2% of the society is doing agriculture now. Like, that is a dramatic, incredible shift in how the society is structured. And it happened because of technology. And the argument always was, well, oh, those people will just go get different jobs. And to a degree they did, but you know what jobs they got, right? Well, shitty retail jobs. Jobs that these agriculturalists would say, oh, those are for teenagers. Well, but those are the only jobs that actually exist. Right? That's it. So we need things like a basic income. We need support systems because the old support system of sell yourself into a labor market doesn't work anymore. It simply doesn't work. That we have accrued enough capital, we've accrued enough technology, we've done enough in spite of the capitalist model that we no longer need to subserviate ourselves in order to get base things like food and shelter. We've built enough shelters, we've built enough housing to house everyone. We're producing way more food than we need. Right? We throw away 50% of our food. Like, the problems that we are facing now are strictly political. And we're getting down to some like really nitty-gritty roots now, where we are really genuinely having a conversation in the society about whether or not everyone should simply have access to food and shelter. Should everyone have food and shelter? And I genuinely don't consider this a political position. I consider this a moral and ethical position, which means that the people who are saying no, people should not have food and shelter, are evil. Like, they're not Republicans. They're not even fascists. They're just evil. That they are arguing for starvation and homelessness. It's not a political position, and it shouldn't be treated as one. The only way that this becomes a political position is if you ask the question, how do we get everyone food and shelter? That's a political conversation. Because then you can say, like, okay, well, everyone should get food and shelter through a basic income. Or, well, can't we actually make the labor market actually do this? Is this more efficient? Like, that's a genuine political discussion. But the conversation we are actually currently having is, should everyone have food and shelter? Which means that we are in a fight against evil itself. There are people in the conversation who want others to starve homeless on the streets, and they think that that's fine. Like, that's a dark evil that exists in our society. You should, and I mean, and Italy's doing what it needs to do in order to sidestep it, and it's gonna completely work, because, oh, if you build real economies to actually really help people, it actually works. right? We know that the basic income works. We know it. Like if it didn't work, things like the child care benefit would have failed already. But they didn't. They've been completely successful. You should see The Last Laugh. It's a silent German film very critical of capitalism about a doorman who gets too old to work, loses his job and his identity. Yeah. Uplifting stuff. But poignant considering that it's coming out of 1924 Germany, right? Did something happen after that might have an echo effect? Anyway, there's a McDonald's in Colorado hiring $20 an hour. Why do people keep saying that to me whenever I say something pro UBI? Because people are trapped in the dynamic. That's all. It's a form of denialism, right? They're just trapped in this dynamic of believing that the only way to structure a society is to sell yourself to a labor market dominated by billionaires. That's really what it comes down to. And like the propaganda is so real. Like these people do not acknowledge that their system is a wage slave system, and they can't. They are incapable of doing so, right? They've just been so heavily propagandized, and like exactly McDonald's hiring. We don't need to change anything, right? And ignore the fact that McDonald's is clear cutting the Amazon. Ignore the fact that these companies are actually destroying the species, right? Ignore all of that. That doesn't matter. All that matters is that you find any job, right? Like, and the quality of the job doesn't matter, right? The outcome of the job doesn't matter. All that matters is billionaire wants workers. That's it. That's as far as they go. They go no farther than this, right? And it's like, you can rest assured that when the monarchy were being like hauled out of their houses and fucking guillotined in the middle of Paris and France, that there were people who were defending the monarchs. For sure there were, right? Like these for fuck's sake, people were arguing that that monarchical rulers were installed by God himself. So, like, you are going to find, like, incoherent nonsense. Like, a lot of it. You're going to see people who are just going to, like, defend this calcified dead system until they are finally gone. Right? That's the harsh reality of how humanity actually works. Is that these people, even as we pry power from their fingers and actually begin to enact a better society in front of their eyes, right? As we actually improve the society, they will still argue that the best way to structure the society is to enslave people to a labor market dominated by billionaires. And they will believe that until the day they die. And that's the truth. That's how humanity works. That we are no longer in a position where we need to waste any energy convincing these types of people. They are already dead. You understand? They are already completely beholden to a failed and dead ideology. And so we no longer need to waste energy convincing them of anything. What we are doing now is organizing to erect the new systems so that we can recover from them. And when they die, our society will be better. Like, that's the harsh truth of it. That we can no longer waste energy convincing people to look up. Like, they're standing around saying, don't look up. That's what they're doing. Like, look up. No? Okay. Moving on. I'd argue a little bit for successful individuals. Success is 70% luck, 20% skill, 10% hard work. I'm not saying poor people deserve to be that way. Most people will get some kind of luck in their lives in the form of an opportunity. Whether or not they actually get to experience success comes down to all the subjective factors, skill, doing actual... This is something I like to say, Rob, to like the Joe Rogan types. Like, Joe Rogan basically said exactly what you said, right? And like Peterson says something somewhat similar, but like... Yes, of course, like, your own effort and your own work is a variable, but it's just a variable, right? It's a singular variable in a larger system, right? And what the individualists are attempting to do is hyper focus on a single variable and exclude the other variables from their computation, which is why they fall into incoherence. Like, no one reasonable is trying to say that there isn't a degree of personal effort. But it would be like looking at a piece of music, right? Like a concerto or a symphony, right? And insisting that the reason why the entire piece was successful was because one flautist played one note perfectly. That's what the individualists are doing. That they're insisting that one flautist played one note perfectly, so the whole thing worked, and if that one flautist hadn't played that one note perfectly, the whole thing would have failed. Like, it's a form of delusion that is incoherent. And the reason why they do it is because they are attempting to justify their own status to even themselves. And the only way they have found to justify their own status to themselves and to everyone around them is by excluding all variables, all other variables, and hyper focusing on the one variable and claiming that that's the variable that matters the most. When in truth, while I concede it certainly is a variable, like your own effort and your own desire and your own kind of stuff is a variable without a doubt, but it's amongst the least important, even though it's the only variable you personally have control over, right? But it's amongst the least important. Like, the circumstances of your birth matter far more than the effort that you put in. That, like, a person born in in Uganda to a woman who then dies, and the father abandons him, right? I don't care how much work he puts in. He's not going to become like Jeff Bezos. Like, that narrative is not real. It's not going to happen, right? It doesn't matter how much work he puts in. The circumstances of his birth have dictated that he is going to live poor in Uganda alone and probably get picked up by a gang, right? That's probably that kid's life story. Because, like, whereas somebody else who gets born to like an apartheid emerald miner, right, gets handed $1 billion just for being alive, right? Yeah, his hard work, sure, but like, you got handed $1 billion at the start of your life. Like, it's hard to fail if those are the circumstances of your birth. Very hard to fail if those are the circumstances of your birth. Italy has 58.3 million compared to Canada's 38 million. Yeah, the problem is that until the government forces retail to either give full-time with benefits or benefits no matter the hours given to employees, nothing will change. I mean, that's one aspect of it, for sure. I'm generally of the opinion, like, I take a look at something like the basic income and just say, like, this is just a way to distribute food and shelter into the society, right? Like, I am of the opinion that we could make it much more simple than a basic income. That literally we should just be like, we could nationalize the food distribution centers. We could literally subsidize our food distribution and our food creation completely through the state. Literally just let people come in and take food. All right, just let them come in and take food. Like, do we need to keep track of it? Really? Like, who are these people who are going to grab like 1,000 loaves of bread? Why? Right? And I say it over and over again. If you don't have a house, if you don't have a home, we could create go into a Service Canada, right? Have one of the wickets just be a person who's like, oh, you don't have a home. Well, fill this form out. Here's your home, right? And that's the end of that story. Like, this money exchange conversation that we're having, right, is just kind of a relic. It's just kind of a way, because people refuse to actually understand that we could just do it. Like, we literally could just, oh, you're hungry? Here's some food. We could do that, right? Oh, you don't have a house? Here's a house. We could totally do that, There's nothing stopping us from doing that, right? The only thing that's stopping us is our own perception of how the system should work. And we're so caught up in the money worship, right? The money worship. And it is worship at this point. Like, we have elevated money to the status of God, without a doubt. And so, in many ways, it's like we're trying to, like, wean drug addicts off of a drug. And we're trying to convince them, hey, could we at least use the drug in a way that's somehow beneficial for the populace, right? Does it have to be used for absolute necessities the way that we use it? Does it have to be this way, right? And there's just so many conservatives and liberals in the conversation. There's just way too many. So this is the way that we're moving forward, because because honestly, if you say what I just said, hey, everyone should just have food and shelter, they should literally be able to walk into a room and we should just give them those things, right? Oh, you're just a dumb commie, get rid of you, and you're out of the conversation. So the basic income is the only way we've actually found to get into the conversation the idea that maybe people should have food and shelter. So they can't imagine, their imagination has been killed thanks to capitalism. Yeah, that's a really good observation, Nova Scotia. Like, that's the reason why the arts need to be destroyed, right? You can't have imaginative citizens. You can't have citizens being like, wait a minute, we could just, that's gotta go. That's got to go, right? Anything that isn't a complete and total subservience to a market dominated by billionaires needs to just be gone. This is the end of history. This is the perfect system. Nothing could be better than this system. It is the greatest system ever devised, and anyone who says otherwise is a dirty commie who's trying to kill you with famines. Like, that's literally the conversation we're having. So, Plato's cave allegory, big time, yeah. Now this guy is dead nuts on right now. Thanks, Kevin. Dead nuts on. That's what a fun. Ooh. You mean like instead of a minimum wage, it's a minimum salary? Like, honest, I just don't like. The more you learn about money, the dumber it gets. Like, money is dumb. It is dumb. Like, it like the whole crypto conversation, all of this like subservience to money, the worship of money, like it just gets dumber and dumber and dumber. You should be able to walk into a room and say, house please, and they should go, here's your house. Like, why is money involved at all? Money is not really a thing. We invented it. Like, it's literally not an object. Like, they say money doesn't grow on trees. That's correct. It's printed by the government and then withheld from us unless we sell ourselves to a market dominated by a billionaire class. That's the structure of the system. It's a process called wage slavery, which people like Trudeau and Biden completely believe is absolutely necessary to uphold, right? Which is why, as history moves on, they will be seen as villains in the narrative, because they are. They're upholding a wage slave system. They are wage slavers. It's very straightforward. As hard as my brother both work, they should be doing twice as well right now. They just aren't ruthless enough when they worked as hard as everybody you know. Well, actually kind of cowardly about Bitcoin. No. Bitcoin needs to go away. Like, it's an environmental catastrophe. Every single one of these cryptocurrencies, like, humanity will look back on cryptocurrencies as just like, wow, we were psychotic. Like, we were off the rails. Like, you know when you have like a bender, like when you get like really drunk and suddenly you find yourself like on the roof jumping into a pool, like kidnapping your neighbor's dog, like all the crazy nut job stories that the next day, like the fucking movie The Hangover, and you like look back on your experience and you go like, oh man, I cannot fucking believe that we absolutely, like, I got a tattoo, like that sort of thing. That's exactly how we're going to look at cryptocurrencies. We're just going to be like, holy shit, I cannot believe that we were actually destroying the species, polluting the environment, destroying this whole place so that we could trade the equivalent of digital Pokemon cards. Like, it's hysteria. It's crazed what we're doing with cryptocurrency. And it absolutely needs to be shut down. All of it needs to be shut down. Like, not just like we aren't going to deal with it, but like straight up criminalized. Straight up like, oh, you've got a server of Bitcoin? Hung! Like, that's the level that we need to be talking about this. Like, it's insane what we're doing. Why would anybody pay inflated food prices when they can throw 40% of the food out anyway? Yeah, capitalism equals hunger and slavery. And it requires it. It requires hunger and slavery. Because if everybody's needs were taken care of, if everybody was content, you can't sell them anything. Right? Like, the goal of capitalism is to create discontent so that it can turn around and sell you the solution. Basic income, minimum salary, guaranteed basic housing, universal pharma, dental, pet mental health care. Could be a lot better. All of it. All of it. And there's no reason we can't do it. The only reason we can't do it is because we're stuck. We're having a real like constipation moment where we genuinely believe like people need to earn it. What the fuck are you talking about? Who earned this life? Hands up. Who earned this life? I love how the right wing always refuses to argue in good faith, and yet they say they're the good guys. I can't get a $1 bet from any of them. I literally asked 10,000 times. Yeah, and nothing indicates that more than the Capitalist Manifesto. I'm going to keep talking about this until like probably the day I die, right? You want to talk about arguing in bad faith? It's this. Like this entire project that the National Post embarked on has been a laughable fraud, like from start to finish. They are incapable of arguing in good faith. They can't do it. Because if they were to actually acknowledge reality, talk about things as they are, instead of this fucking total straw man that they completely have erected, then they would find themselves literally arguing for wage slavery. Like that's what's going on. And the reason why they can't argue in good faith is because they do believe that they're the good guys, right? And if they were to suddenly start actually telling the truth about the system they lived in, like they would be arguing and we literally would just look at them and see like, you hear what's coming out of your mouth, right? Like you hear it, right? Right? But like everybody believes they're the good guy. Like everybody believes they're the good guy until the comet hits. If taxes weren't charged to people making less than 40K or remove HST, don't tax anything. Don't allow monopolies or anyone to make any more than $1 billion. Many simple ideas. Yeah. Like we could cap things. We could have like simple, like a wealth tax straight up. We could, we could eliminate all forms of taxation except a financial transaction tax. Like there are so many things that we could actually do to make the society immediately better. Like instantly better. Like, but we're just not interested in it. We're just not interested in it. It's the reason we keep voting conservative and liberal. We're just not interested in improving the society. Yeah, they built homes for veterans coming back from World War II and Vietnam. Yeah, no, we could definitely do it. Like, it's just, we're just not interested. Money is just a token for trading goods and services. A basic income and strong social programs make the worship of money irrelevant. Well, and that was always the argument. Trotsky made this argument that, you shouldn't ban money, like you shouldn't banish money, right? That money will simply wither away in its importance, right? That the importance of money, people will just have it and be like, oh, what is that? And they'll be like, oh, it's like a relic. It's like something we used to use, right? And they'll just use it, as he described it, it was, we'll use it as bookmarks and shit like that, right? Just like, people will put it in museums and be like, yeah, we used to think that this was important, you know? And so you don't need to like do a hard cut and remove it from the society or anything like this. There'll just come a point where it's not really relevant to anyone. Nobody takes it seriously, which is exactly where it should be. Like it's literally something we create. Like if that doesn't convince you that money is like kind of a joke, like it's like a joke we're playing on ourselves. Like we create money And the idea behind it, there's kind of a pure idea behind it where it's like we've got to keep track of who is buying and who is doing what, right, in the society. But then they took the money and they started to find ways to use the money to make money just by shifting money around, right? And so they create more money and they're doing nothing productive with it. So like they buy like Italian currency and then turn around and buy like the Dutch mark, and then they turn around and rebuy the dollar, and that configuration of currency exchanges somehow increases the total supply of money that you had, right? So it's all a bunch of just like marketeering. It's all a bunch of financialization, right? This parasite that has taken control of our society. This idea that like, oh yeah, you don't need to do anything productive or be meaningful or have anything important happen. You just need to shift your money around in certain ways, right? Buy low, sell high, right? Like it's insanity upon insanity, and we're caught in it. We're just caught in it, and the further you get away from it, like, and the more you see it, the less embedded in it you are, and the more you see it from an outside perspective, the more you really do understand, like, oh, this is just like a religion. Like it is a religion. There's nothing scientific about it. There's no rationale to it, right? There isn't even an argument anymore being put forward, right? Especially after this Capitalist Manifesto shit. Like these are non-arguments. Like they're just words. So there isn't even an argument being put forward anymore for why capitalism functions or works, or why money works, right? It's gambling. Yeah. It doesn't actually achieve anything. And what's embarrassing about it, and it is embarrassing now, is that as we wallow in this idea of like, well, does this person earn it? Does this person deserve it? Does that person, this person shouldn't, and I don't, and all of this like pretend moralizing about whether or not people deserve things. Well, societies that are just like, well, we don't care about that. Like, we want everyone to be educated and to be well informed, and we want everybody to be participating in an economy and in a society. And if the solution to that is to just give people without houses, and give people without food, and then get them into educational facilities that they can literally just walk in the front door, and we just educate them, and we pay those people really well and do all that kind of stuff, and we build this over here, and then let's create some high-speed rail over here so we can get people really moving, and then we'll do all this kind of stuff. Well, the difference is going to be that one society is going to go and the other is going to go, right? Like it's a classic case of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. That's what we are doing in the West. We are literally saying to one another that we should collapse the society and live in a shithole because I don't think he earned it. I don't think he's working hard enough, you guys. This guy needs to be working harder, so we're going to sacrifice the whole society to do it. Yeah, that's the thing to do. That's the thing to do. Incidentally, 50% of my taxes go to war. War is good. War is good. Like, this society deserves everything that's about to happen to it. Everything that's about to happen to it, we completely deserve. We've earned it. We've worked so hard. Like, what is the glorious project of Western civilization? The glorious project of Western civilization is its own destruction. That is really the truth of it. That other societies build like world wonders, right? Like even ancient, like Babylonian societies built like the Hanging Gardens, right? The pyramids. Right? What's our big achievement? We built a big tower that's going to blow over in 100 years. Yeah, it's mainly made of glass and paper. Yup. Like we are just going to destroy ourselves, and that is our great achievement. Staggering. Like staggering. And it's all because we refuse to acknowledge that maybe our neighbor should have a good time. Right? Like maybe our neighbor should just have a good time. No, they gotta prove something. They gotta earn it. If I gotta prove something and earn it, they gotta prove something and earn it too. That's the way it is. Get a job. Get a job. Right? And it's just like, how about, crazy thought, interesting point. Here's a thought. How about everybody just has access to food and shelter? Everybody can just go to school and pursue whatever it is they like. And then once they're out of school, they can just pursue their interests and pursue the things that they want to pursue. And by doing that, everyone will just have a happier time. And that the outcome will simply be a society with no homelessness. Everyone's fed. Everyone has shelter. And everybody's going around doing what they want to do. And so everybody's happy. What's the problem? Well, what about the farmer that grew the food? What, does he need help? I'll go help him. Right? Forget about these temporary foreign workers. There's this like wage slave system, right? Like, I'll go help him. Does he need help? Right? Well, no, he doesn't need any help. He's right. Well, then what's the problem? Like, what's the problem? That's a question I keep asking. What is the problem? Right? What is the problem with everybody just having food and shelter and living nicely? Right? What is actually the problem with that? And the deeper and deeper I dig down that hole, the more I really begin to see that there's just huge segments of our society that really just want people to die. It really is coming down to it. That they genuinely are arguing that people should just die. That's capitalism. It's what capitalism does to a motherfucker. All right. Wow. It's already 7:15. You guys are beautiful. You got me on the ramble. We didn't even do the draw for today's number or the song or anything, so let's do it now. I'm going with a 6. I'm feeling like a 6. Come on, big 6.
Here we go for today's number. It's December 28, 2021. 10 balls.
10 balls.
Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10.
How about the leg? Here we got a 6 from Ezzy, all 3 from Rob.
Numbers.
Swirl the numbers.
Pick a number.
Pick a number. Here we go. 4 from Tinker.
Today's number
is 7.
7.
It was 7 yesterday. 7 yesterday, 7 today. Let's see what we're playing. I gotta flip the coin because 7. Whoops. Disaster for everything. Yeah. Okay. Wow, I'm playing the same song that I played yesterday. So this goes out to all the 7s out there in Nova Scotia. I'm gonna assume that that's the lag. He didn't draw the 7 and you were like 7, right? I'm gonna assume that that's the lag, Nova Scotia. All right. Psychos sold a package of lies, spun their stories and promised the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get off watching your children cry, 'cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. For trying to kill the human race, I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and take out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws, 'cause the won't go down without a fight. Fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. 'Cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. Yeah! That song kicks ass. That song kicks fucking ass. Every artist in the world who's attempting to make a movie now that's like Don't Look Up, that wants to do like a social commentary on what's going on, contact me. Pay me for my music. That song kicks ass. Put that song in your fucking music. In your fucking shit. Have like Luke Skywalker trying to blow up the Death Star gearing up to this song. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah! And anybody who wants to tell me that song sucks, they suck. That song is awesome. All right. So, why are employers so picky if they're desperate for workers? This comes from Kiora. Lots of people pointing out, because lots of them aren't desperate for workers. They're desperate for PPP loans from the government. As long as they're actively trying to find employees, they don't have to pay the loans back, whether they actually hire anyone or not. Small business owners have been bragging about it in Facebook groups and on Reddit. Publix, a grocery store in my area, has been on the jobs websites for a few months now, with 18 plus positions open in just the closest store. I go to the store a lot and hear employees talking about the overwork and how they need new people. I apply for meat cutter and or produce positions that are open. When I went to the interview, it lasted less than a minute. Hiring manager asked me if I was only interested in full-time. I said correct. He said, can't help you. We're only hiring part-time workers. I politely asked why they were advertising for full-time positions. He said, we have to. So that was the interview. Most employers want $50 worth of work for $10 pay. And they're also too lazy to train employees. They want someone with a college degree to work for blue-collar wages. As a result, they cannot find this magical employee who has to spend $300,000 getting a degree who will work for $15 an hour. Somebody is trying to sell you a worker shortage. In fact, the only shortage of perfectly trained workers ready to work for below average wages under crushing pressure, something that will always be in short supply. Why hire new people when you can wear out people you already employ? And if you hire new people at higher wage range, then you have to pay your existing workers more, or risk them leaving or becoming disgruntled. Also, many business owners, despite protestations that they're realists, engage in more than minor amounts of fantasy. They know that the solution to being shorthanded is to pay more and to make their workplaces more appealing. However, both cut into profits, and that's their core focus. If they just sort of ignore the problem, perhaps it will fix itself, and then they can continue to earn their profit margins and obtain their employees they need. This also may explain why companies aren't training employees like they used to. Yeah, like I called it back when the Canadian government introduced a subsidy to businesses. I literally was like, they're just going to take that money and say fuck you to everybody, right? And what have they done? They've taken that money and said fuck you to everybody. That's exactly what happened. Like, stop subsidizing like business entities. Give money to people. Give money to people. And then they will use that how they see fit. But it's because we have this like illiterate, incoherent group of psychopathic narcissists calling themselves neoliberal economists, as if there is such a thing. It's completely a religious ideology that have inverted this idea that no, you give money to businesses and then they create services that are then used by the populace. But if the populace doesn't have any money, they can't use the service, right? It's very straightforward shit. And so what do you want to do if you actually want an economy to work and function and actually have a thing? Well, you give money to the people. And then if the people want your service, they'll buy it, right? But they can't buy a service that they don't have the money to buy. And the solution for the neoliberals is, well, then they should sell themselves to these places, right? But then these places don't pay a wage necessary to actually even pay rent, let alone get the service in the first place. Who predicted all of this, incidentally? Oh, was it Karl fucking Marx? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Like, the system destroys itself because the people who have control of the businesses don't want to pay enough wages for people to even pay rent, let alone extra services. And so everybody has to leave and the whole system comes apart. Very straightforward shit. Very straightforward shit. Getting into some COVID, right? Ontario COVID hospitalizations broken down by vaccination status. I believe we're down like to 8,000 right now. Oops. Didn't mean to shut that down. But as you can see, right, patients in hospital occupancy amongst unvaccinated people, hospital occupancy amongst people vaccinated with at least 2 doses. So this is interesting because there is a bit of an uptick, as you can see, right? The vaccine is not a perfect protection, obviously, but it's still a pretty wide shot here. And then ICU occupancy amongst unvaccinated people. This one's interesting because, as you can see, the ICU occupancy pretty low, generally. Like, there isn't like the big spike up that you're seeing here with just hospital occupancy, which again plays in to the narrative that Omicron is less deadly. Like, it's not as deadly. Even the medical community is starting to be like, okay, like, we don't need these people in emergency care. Either that or the medical community is just being like, fuck these people, get them fucking out of here. As you can see, ICU occupancy, like, there's the smallest trend upwards you can possibly see. Just like literally from like 1 to 2. Just which, if you're like a Fox News correspondent, you could be like, ICU occupancy has doubled. Caleb Maupin came out with this, and I think this is absolutely brilliant. This is why I like Caleb, okay? Caleb, if you don't know, is a communist working in the United States. Definitely an ally, definitely working for us. And he comes out with this tweet. And I've been saying we should be doing this the whole time. Jesus said unto him, if thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. Then Jesus said unto his disciples, verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, who then can be saved? But Jesus beheld them, and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Matthew 19, 21 to 26. So, what Caleb is doing is what I have been calling for a while now. Read that book. Read that book. Read one of the Gospels, in this case Matthew. You're going to find out really, really fast that these people are complete and total frauds. You can use their own book against them. Have someone like Jordan Peterson rudder up against this. Hey, Mr. Peterson, you keep talking about Western civilization and Judeo-Christianity. What's your take on this? Why won't someone like Jordan Peterson talk about this passage, which is obvious, it's overt, it's right in front of your face. There it is. There's a reason. There's a reason, because it completely dismantles his whole narrative, right? In literally, 5 verses? Like, one like 0.001% of the book he venerates completely dismantles him as a thinker and a critical speaker. And he refuses to rudder up against it. He won't say a word about it. Very simply. Because it very plainly destroys his whole argument. Hey Eric, how you doing, bud? Good evening. Yesterday I was reading an article where MIT made a study that by raising minimum wage, it causes employers to increase their part-time stuff with 40 hours per week. It proves your further point. The capitalists don't want to pay a livable wage. No, of course. Like, they're not interested in that. All they're interested in is the bottom line for themselves. And in their mad pursuit for wealth, they'll just let the comet hit. Right? Like, that's it. Please tell me what vaccination these Canadians are getting. I'm not sure, Kevin, honestly. Long-term care homes being hit with COVID again. Yeah, that's definitely going through. For sure that's happening, Ruth. I just listened to a CBC report about that. And once again, like, the privatized long-term care homes are just, they don't give a shit. Like, they don't care. Hey, DJ, how you doing, bud? I was watching a thing the other day. Jesus tried to overthrow the money changers by turning over the tables. Then he says, you've turned my father's place into a marketplace. Well, and it's important to remember with this particular moment that Jesus was actually upholding the law. That what those money changers were doing was against the law of the land, right? That's the reason why Pontius Pilate says that Christ had done nothing wrong. Because he was upholding the law, right? But they executed him for it anyway, right? Because at the end of the day, capitalism doesn't care about the law. Capitalism cares about wealth for itself, period. And that's the end of the story. And they're literally willing to publicly crucify a man over it. Like that's the point of the Christ story. The point of the Christ story is that if you stand up against power and wealth, they will crucify you for it. Like, but we have to resurrect the idea that what's important is creating a better society for each other. That's what's important. Dr. Todd Grande did a video on Jordan Peterson. I can't wait to see. Oh, I meant to say staff. Oh, I see. Good evening. Yesterday I was reading an article. Cause employers to cause. Okay. I believe you, Eric. I think it still is. Honestly, man, like, nah, I'm not going to talk about Peterson today. Like, Peterson is just like, I will say this, and I've been kind of light on Peterson recently, right? Because I forgot something about him that I think is really important to bring to the forefront. Peterson became famous by espousing a lie, right? What was it, Bill C-14 or Bill C-16, where he was talking about, oh, it's an infringement on my rights or any of this. He totally lied about what that bill was. He completely lied to the Canadian people. He at the very least mischaracterized what the law was doing, right? And this is what propelled him into fame. So his entire foundation is built on a lie, explicitly. So we no longer need to really discuss him as a critical thinker or anything, because he began his career in the public as a liar. And it's explicit. You can see it. It's obvious. So, and he's never recanted. He's never apologized, right? So once you understand that the man is willing to attain fame through lying, well, then you don't really need to pay attention to him. I was debating with a New Zealand Christian lady, and she now blocks me because I highlighted that, A, the gospel is anti-capitalist and very much says that greed is evil. So why do you promote? Yep. And all they can do is block you. That's all they can do. And then they'll complain about cancel culture. Business after sundown on Fridays till... Yeah, because you can't spread COVID after a certain period of time or before a certain period of time. That's why that makes sense, right? A system that says greed is good. She could never answer my question and continuously push the goalpost and never answer any of my question. Yeah, they can't, but they can't. That's the thing. That's why focusing on their own text, and you don't need to take it outside of their text. You literally can just quote it, listen to their response, and then be like, but Christ said, and then just say it again, right? You literally can do that to these people, and they can't answer you, right? Because ultimately they're not arguing against you. They're arguing against their own Christ. That's the power of that. That's the power, is that they're not arguing against you, they're arguing against their own Christ. Because they don't read the book. And the people that they're listening to who hold on to the book are frauds. People like Joel Osteen or Pat Robinson, Jerry Falwell. These people are frauds, right? And you literally could just stand in front of any of those men. If you were to have a debate with any of those men, literally all I would do if I was to debate any of these people would be I would directly quote from the book. And I wouldn't add commentary. I wouldn't say anything. I would literally just be like, and I would just quote it. Tell that to my YouTube algorithm. No kidding, eh? How many times do I need the... and the YouTube algorithm for me is getting to the point now where it's like, well, here's the person who said something bad about Jordan Peterson. Do you want to hear somebody say something bad about Jordan Peterson? And I'm just like, no. I just don't think he should be involved in the conversation anymore. After really revealing to everybody. And you bring up the Zizek debate. Yeah. He's not a serious person. Really. He's not. He presents as serious, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not interested in knowing what he's talking about. I think that's really what it comes down to. He's not actually interested in knowing what he's talking about. If he was interested in knowing what he was talking about, he would have talked about Bills C-14 or 16 or whatever it was, honestly. But he's not an honest person. Very straightforwardly, he's not an honest person. So, once you realize that about somebody, right? Because that was always sort of my thing in the recent recently these last few months. I've been like, I do think that Peterson is attempting to argue honestly. I kept saying that, but then someone brought forward hey, he became famous because he was lying about the nature of that bill, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. So he's completely not interested in being honest about what he's saying. And once you understand that someone is arguing dishonestly, you just don't need to listen to them anymore. They're just not a serious person. And Peterson's unserious, completely unserious. When I told her that the U.S. is committing mass genocide with the anti-vaxxer, I mean, imperialists rarely like to they see their genocides as a favor, right? Oh, we're helping those people by genociding them. That's what we said about the First Nations people. That's what we said about the black Africans we enslaved, that we were helping them. Speaking of, U.S. provides military assistance to 73% of world's dictatorships. Just in case you were, on the fence. Democracy promotion, right? We here in America... Let me do it right. We here in America, we really believe in promoting democracy. And we have organizations, the National Endowment for Democracy, that goes around the world and promotes democracy everywhere it goes for this great and wonderful country. And this great and wonderful country, all America, we're going to spread democracy everywhere we go. Right? And as long as you believe it, as long as you don't actually, listen to reason or facts or anything like that, How you doing, Dan? See, okay, no epiphany. How you doing? First of all, good to see you. You missed the Caleb Maupin part. That guy's a tool. Why do you say that? Because there is a there are people in the world that think Caleb is like a tool, and I don't see it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like sit there and like listen to everything this guy says, but seems like he's on the right side. Seems like he's fighting the good fight. Seems like he's trying to be honest. Seems like he's trying to present a worldview that makes sense. Anytime I have listened to him talk, he seems lucid. He seems intelligent. And more importantly, he seems to be fighting against capitalist imperialism. So yeah, I think Kevin's kind of onto it. He has respect in here, yeah. And in left circles, anybody that doesn't understand probably needs to listen. Well, I don't agree with Caleb on cannabis. I don't know his position on cannabis, honestly. And like that's such low hanging fruit, honestly. Like cannabis, like I just don't. It doesn't really matter to me. Been research. Okay, great. No Epiphany thinks, I've been researching him for months now. I've read his books. He's either a plant or a narc with great man syndrome. He used to be a preacher. He's more of a preacher than anything. I think he used to be a preacher, right? I think he comes up from that tradition. Let's do this. Let's have some fun with Caleb. Caleb Maupin. I'd be very surprised to find out that Caleb Maupin was a plant. I got to be honest. That'd be very, very surprising to me. Come on now, this guy's got to have a Wikipedia. Really, Wikipedia? Like, is literally Wikipedia ignoring this guy? Looks like Wikipedia is just straight. Oh, there he goes. No, that's Wikidata. No kidding. See, this is more shocking to me than anything. Like, I feel like I should be able to pull up a Wikipedia article on this guy. Anyway. Dude, I just got here. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Honestly, spread it around. I just haven't seen the smoking gun, I think is what it comes down to. Like, to say that he is a plant is a pretty big accusation. The guy goes on like RT television. He is definitely a Marxist. He's involved with the Communist Party. Yeah, I'd have to see something pretty condemning, I think. Kevin, pull it off the gas, okay, bud? Pull it off the gas. Pull off the gas. People should be able to say these sorts of things, okay? But you are right about him like being kind of a preacher. He's got kind of an evangelical sort of way about him. You're right about that, because I think he comes from that tradition. And you should read his books. You're probably right. But again, like, I don't really like. If I am going to read theory, I'm going to read like Mao and Stalin and Deng, right? I'm really not going to spend too much time focusing on what like Caleb Maupin is off doing, because Caleb Maupin is off doing what he's doing, right? He's trying to gather support in his own kind of community, and I think that's good. I think he should be doing that. Yes, I know about his stuff where he's focusing on BreadTube, right? That he talks about BreadTube all the time. Again, I don't know if I agree with him. Like, I think that there is such a thing as like a CIA, like, for example, someone like Vosh, right? Vosh recently admitted that he is a CIA snitch, right? He straight out admitted it, that during the Occupy Wall Street movement, he was going around snitching to the CIA, right? So he's fixated on BreadTube because he has Gray Zone just exposed their connection to the CIA. Yeah, Gray Zone doing good work on that too. In fact, BreadTube has been exposed to CIA. Look it up at the Gray Zone. Oh, let's do it. BreadTube CIA Gray Zone. Let's do it. Leaked files. No. Let's just go to the gray zone. Corrupting science, war in Ukraine. Oh, here we go. We've got. Look, if we're gonna have a disagreement in chat, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Come on, I should be able to just search BreadTube, right? BreadTube. Leaked files expose Syria PSYOPs veteran astroturfing BreadTube star to counter COVID restriction critics. Not exactly a gripping headline. I mean, we know this shit's going on all the time. Yeah, I'm not finding the article, dude. I think I'm just gonna move on. BreadTube is anti-communist. It's a fact. I mean, I know from my own personal interactions with BreadTube that the people who are on BreadTube are more liberal and conservative minded. I think that's as far as I'm willing to go with my own experience. That when I post my stuff on BreadTube, and I do post my stuff on BreadTube, they are not very receptive to what's being said. That said, I don't get a lot of hate from BreadTube. Like, I don't get a lot of heat. Like, more dismissiveness than anything else, right? I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like, BreadTube is a threat. Like, BreadTube is just like another subreddit. Like, it's not that important. This is the thing that kind of gets me, okay, about this conversation, guys. You guys are talking about BreadTube. Is it CIA? Kyle Maupin or Caleb Maupin? And oh, he wrote a thing, and there's just all, and there's an infection. I just don't think BreadTube's that important. You know, like I feel like we're stepping up on something. We're stepping up on something that I don't think has that much relevance. Like, I was a bit surprised when Caleb Maupin even wrote that book. Right? And it's, I've never understood what BreadTube was and wasn't specifically. BreadTube it's just a subreddit. That's all it is. You go here, you go to BreadTube, right? It says YouTube, but good, BreadTube, right? And you can just put anything you like, right? So, like, here's the Cody Shody, right? Like, I love the Some More News guy, right? Here's news about Lindsay Ellis, right? From a fairly popular trans commentator, right? Leftist disunity. Here's something from the Good News guy, right? Or the Good Politics guy, right? And it just you can literally put it up. It gets upvoted or not, right? Very simple, straightforward. No fucking mystery to it. And right? Here's your handsome dandy fella right here, right? With 0 upvotes. Thank you very much. And which I come to expect from this place because BreadTube is definitely more liberal centrist minded. Like, definitely. That's the truth. That they might here's the bother boy. You know, so everybody's just like throwing their chips in here, trying to spread around. But look, Don't Look Up as a cinematic masterpiece taking aim at the capitalist death cult, right? 11. So there's a hit or miss to it. And like, even I anticipate that there is a certain degree of CIA involvement. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization who absolutely has the modus operandi to influence media. That's absolutely the case, right? Like, and that's undeniable. I think if you're denying that, you're living in Looney Tunes town. But like, I just don't see it. If it is happening on BreadTube, it's as subtle as it can be, right? Yeah, this is truth too, no epiphany. The CIA does not need to directly interfere. The left eats itself enough. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, reading modern political science will show you so. Yeah, no, you're right. Like the left hurts itself a lot. For sure it does. But that said, we know it's also a CIA playbook to take advantage of that. That because the left cares so much about moral purity, right? Moral purity is a very tough subject for leftists, right? Because like when you have a disagreement with a leftist, oftentimes, and I am saying this sort of generally, it's just generally the truth, there is some stance that they will take that is like, if you disagree with this, right, then this is enough to tear us apart. And oftentimes the stances are kind of ridiculous, honestly. Like, very fundamentalist, very, like, silly, like the nature of Trotsky's relationship to Stalin, right? Like, I'm a Trotskyist, and if you think that Stalin was decent at all, then we need to separate. And there's like Stalinists and Maoists and Dangists and Trotskyites and Leninists and Marxists, and they all disagree with one another, and that's enough to split them up. Like, it's silliness, honestly. I view it that way. Like, I would much rather, like, I wish that, and I think part of it is because we're so used to betrayal, and we're so used to like an infection of destruction and abandonment, that we don't really know how to stand in solidarity with one another. I think that's a big problem about it, right? And so that disunity that definitely exists, right? But it gets used against us. And this idea of moral purity, which I don't buy into. I don't buy into a moral pure argument on like whether or not we should read and understand Mao or any of that, right? All of these guys have something to contribute and something to say. All of them. Like that, and it pays to remember, like, we're all humans and so are they, right? I think Blumenthal, Maupin, Coffin do more work for the CIA indirectly by stoking these conflicts. I'm sure they are happy about it. I don't know if I agree with that statement, though. Like, I look at people like Blumenthal and Maupin. I don't know who Coffin is, but I look at them more as, like, they are voices that are trying to push forward and trying to get more ideas into the narrative. And I think that by itself is valuable. And, like, the CIA really wants these guys to just, like, stop fucking talking. Stop fucking talking. Yeah, let's get this beautiful guy off the screen here. And, like, again, like, Maupin isn't going to be, like, the end-all be-all, right? Like anybody. Incisive, how you doing, bud? Don't know if I've ever seen you here. Good to see you. YouTube is the place where people investigate politics. It's absolutely important if you, CIA, want to control the left. Well, look, the CIA has so much money. They are involved in everything. Like, don't fool yourself about this, okay? Like, I understand that there is this sort of narrative that is coming out of Epiphany, which is like, the left is constantly like, it's the CIA. And it's like, but, like, yeah, like, the CIA is involved. The CIA isn't the end point, though. Like, it's not like you can't just say the CIA and move on, right? But you also can't say that the CIA isn't involved, because it certainly is. Like, it certainly is, right? Blumenthal had credibility. Now he's a paranoid anti-vaxxer who ties everything to Syria. Someone bought what credibility he had. Now it's gone. I don't see that. Like, I think that Blumenthal is, like, what always happens to fellows like Blumenthal and fellows like Dore. Jimmy Dore is another one that's on this journey, I think. Like, these are the people that wander into the wilderness, okay? And the only difference between, like, the reason why he looks like he's going off the rails and he's going is because he is. Right? Like, he is going off the rails, and he knows he's going off the rails, and he knows he's wandering into the wilderness, and he knows he's going into controversial territory, and he knows it. I take a look at something like the Russiagate scandal, right? But again, so Jimmy Dore, right? Jimmy Dore was off the rails with the Russiagate scandal, just like Max Blumenthal. They were off the rails with it. And then what happened? They found something. They found something serious. And they came back and they said, the Russiagate narrative is false. Right? And they showed that to be true. And men like Blumenthal is willing to look like kind of an oddball off on the far left out in the wilderness, so long as he keeps coming back with something verifiable and something that is true. And my opinion then is that we should let him. We should let him, and we should be completely open to it. Like, do I think that everything Max Blumenthal is saying right now is 100% like absolutely the case? I don't think that way about anybody, right? But do I think he's doing good work and he's trying to do good work? Absolutely. Absolutely I do. You shouldn't, just as you shouldn't walk up to an artist when he's half finished with a painting or a project, like, or a sculpture, and then critique it. You shouldn't walk up to a guy like Blumenthal as he's doing this work. And the unfortunate truth, like, a guy like Blumenthal would be better served in a non-capitalist model, because he wouldn't constantly have to present himself, right? Like, that's the problem with what's going on with Blumenthal, is that he's constantly in a position where he has to present stuff, right? To remain relevant, to get people to see his stuff, to stay in the conversation at all. He constantly needs to present stuff. And so he's constantly presenting this like, half-baked shit, right? That has some merit and it is interesting, but so instead of him going off into the wilderness alone and doing all of this and then coming back to us after maybe a year or two, right? They're forced into this position where they've got to bring us along the journey. And the journey is weird. Like, it just is. It just is. And so when it comes to guys like Blumenthal, when it comes to guys like Dore, I say you let them do it. I say you let them do it. And fundamentally, I still think they're on our side. Right? They're on our side. Infrared, a rising star on the left. Yeah, I mean, just proving that society loves incoherence. Like, just word salad your way to victory, right? You don't need to make sense or be credible. You can just say whatever you like and people will listen. What do you guys say? Jimmy Dore is your brain on populism. When it fails, you think having no values is the way to go. And I don't think that Blumenthal's article is accurate at all. He is writing libel. But you guys keep referring to this article. I just don't. I'm not finding it. Like, I'm not finding it. I don't know what article you're talking about. Like, can I get a headline? Like, is this the article that we're supposed to be talking about? Like, because honestly, like, leaked files expose Syria PsyOps veteran astroturfing bread tube star to counter COVID restriction critics. Just by the headline, I'm like, I don't really care. Like, honestly, guys, like, I look at this and I just, literally the first thing I thought was, I just don't care. Like, leaked files exposed Syria PsyOp veteran astroturfing, so like CIA agent, astroturfing bread tube star to counter COVID restriction critics. Like, yeah. I just assume that kind of shit is happening. Like, do I care to, like, dig deep and, like, learn about it? Not really. Honestly. Like, it's not going to change my worldview one way or the other. Right? Like, that. So, like, I feel like there's all this hay going on about, like, oh, it discredits him and all this kind of stuff. Is this the article? Is this what we're talking about? Like, for real. Someone say yes to this. Yep, that's it. Okay. So let's go through it. Let's see. By covertly recruiting popular YouTube influencer Abigail Thorne to counter growing opposition to UK government COVID restrictions, PsyOps pros are bringing home the tactics they honed in the dirty Syrian war, or the Syrian dirty war. Leaked documents. So what are the leaked documents? Something I have to download. Okay, I'm not going to do any of that right now. Have revealed a state-sponsored influence operation designed to undermine critics of the British government's coronavirus policies by astroturfing a prominent founder of the BreadTube clique of anti-fascist YouTube influencers. The project aims to conduct psychological profiling on British citizens dissenting against policies such as mandatory vaccination and lockdowns, then leverage the data to establish a YouTube channel that portrays these critics as dangerous super spreaders of disinformation. Like, again, I assume that's happening. You understand? Like, yeah, the CIA is gonna put people on YouTube and put people in BreadTube. Like, I just assume that's happening. I honestly don't need a guy to be like, haha, a document. I'm like, yeah, like this, that's the CIA. Like, if you don't think the CIA is doing this, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the entire history of the CIA is doing exactly this shit. Like, exactly this shit. It's what they want to do. So I don't even view this as like a gotcha. Like, for real. Like, honestly, I look at this and I think, oh, I guess these guys just needed to publish something on December 24th. Straight up. Like, this is like the definition of a non-story to me. Designed to curb the influence of pseudoscience material online, which specific emphasis on coronavirus related to anti-vaxxing sentiment, the operation is run by the UK's Royal Institution and dubbed Challenging Pseudoscience. Its top patron is Charles, the Prince of Wales, next in line to the British throne, who recently hit out as supposed conspiracy theories surrounding COVID-19 vaccines. The organization received a substantial cash injection in 2020 from the UK's government Culture Recovery Fund earmarked for video production. Leaked files obtained by the Grey Zone indicate that the Royal Institution has enlisted the service of Valiant Projects, a social change communications firm founded by a public relations operative previously involved in the UK Foreign Office campaign for violent regime change in Syria. Valiant has also been sponsored by the U.S. Agency for International Development, a U.S. intelligent cutout for a project aimed at investigating disinformation. Again, so far, like I'm not shocked. Are you? Here's the most honest thing ever said about Jimmy Dore, onward. I don't like Jimmy Dore because he's boring. Okay. Like, straight up. I find recently that Jimmy Dore is doing a lot of, like, a lot of the shit he does on stage, he's bringing into his YouTube stuff, and it doesn't work. Very, very simply, right? A lot of the, like, I mean, this kind of stuff. He's, like, been talking like that more recently. Like, just like, Valiant's central role in operations highlights the trend of information warfare specialists. And it's just like, no thanks, Jimmy. Like, no thanks. Nah. Yeah, because Jimmy Dore talks about issues that care about the economy, war, he doesn't care about bullshit. You might be wrong about vaccines, don't matter. Okay. I don't understand why there's any argument going. This is exactly what we're talking about when we come to left unity, right? Okay. Like, stop. Just stop. I will start putting people into timeout. Stop. Like, you guys aren't actually bringing anything interesting to the table. Right? You're not. You're just bickering. It's tedious. We could go through this. We could take a look. But, like, this is, like, for real. Like, why are you guys, like, going at each other? What's the story here? Do you guys need a hug? Do you need a hug? Do you need a kiss? Do you need a little Slurpee? Right? You guys want to go play some video games? Put me in timeout, bread daddy. Yeah. Good old Loaf coming in with the good stuff. Like, I don't know. It's like why are you guys puffing your chest up? Like, and honestly, especially over this. Like, over this? This is the thing we're doing. We're puffing our chest out. Kevin Budd. Are you for real trying to convince me that infrared is interesting or has anything interesting to say? Well, we can disagree with one another, but this is childish bullshit. Like, this is what's happening. Like, I feel like I'm just watching two people sort of lose their minds a little bit, and I don't know. It's not really that interesting. Like, really, like this isn't interesting. So I'm gonna move on. Like, here's something that's actually interesting. So this is a personal story. And I always have said, no epiphany, man, that doesn't help either, bud. Like, that doesn't help either. I honestly don't need to see any of this. Honestly. Like, I don't understand why just being kind is so hard. Like, I just don't understand why that's so hard. Just be kind. So here's a personal story. You too, Kevin. I'm watching two to tango here, bud. Two to tango. Right? It's like the Spider-Man meme where you're both pointing at each other. Like, we're good. I'm having a difficult time looking forward to things everyone else takes for granted. We are good, bud. We're good. I'm happy. I'm happy to do this. We're moving on. I sold my home and paid off all outstanding debts. In May, June of this year, I was glad to be able to clean the table off and take some pressure off myself. But now, I don't think I can take the leap on another mortgage, 30 years or even less. Why? Here's why I choose to post my thoughts on our collapse. I doubt that the current economic environment can sustain itself much longer. I see some writing on the wall. I see rising asset values and large indebted amounts from mortgages, student loans, car notes, and so on, being taken on by clearly optimistic people. Much more optimistic than I. In fact, I don't trust my employer or the industry I work in as being sustainable. I fear a tremendous asset collapse is coming, and I choose not to be a part of it. Even more, I know that sitting out of the party means that likely it will cost even more if or when I do decide to join in and take those risks. I played along in this entire maddening Western game of taking in huge debts just to work my life away to service those debts. I want off the treadmill. Forever. I see a world far worse than existed beginning in 2007 and going on for quite some time, where people lost homes, forced into the street, lost jobs, lost their dignity. It's just very hard for me to look around and see all the consumption and not ask the simple question, how can people be so gullible? Oh my God. That's a powerful expression, you know? That's a powerful expression coming from someone, and it was really heartfelt. And a big reason why I like reading those heartfelt expressions is because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of emotional power for someone, especially someone who is just spending their days working away. Right? That we just saw a person express themselves as purely as a person can. And I really think it's important that we understand that there is like high emotional stakes going on. High emotional stakes going on. And I sometimes worry that it is because of the high emotional stakes that we find ourselves in that we allow those emotions to carry us away. Are you familiar with the economist Michael Hudson, author of Super Imperialism? Absolutely. Michael Hudson is wonderful. Really, he's the guy that really started talking about the financial system as a parasite, and he's completely accurate. It is completely a parasite. Ontario provincial poll. If you need any evidence that we are a bunch of dumb monkeys, here it is. Here it fucking is. Conservatives down, little tiny bit. The Conservatives have been on a downward trend for quite some time, honestly. Like, they used to be polling as high as 60%, right? But the ONDP are down 6 points, with the Liberals being up 5 points. And you know why? It's because the Liberals are coming out and lying to the populace and saying that they're going to do stuff. And the NDP are coming out saying limp, lame, like, we're going to make sure everyone has a $20 minimum wage by 2026. It's like, yeah. Like, no. Like, actually promise things that are meaningful and impactful and are going to actually matter to people, right? Like, oh boy, I can't pay my rent. Housing prices are skyrocketing. But boy howdy, in 4 years, right? In 4 years, I'm going to be able to finally maybe pay my rent, maybe. Big promises coming out of the ONDP. Like, literally, if I was the ONDP, I would be like, yeah, day fucking one. Like, day fucking one, we are signing this legislation. Like, this shit's going to end. We're going to end this. Like, this is the way I want the NDP to be talking, but they're not. Because they're weak. They're weak. They always have been. They've always been weak. And you're going to see that weakness writ large in this election as the populace just swings over to the Liberals again. Because the Liberals know how to lie to the populace, right? They're very good at it. They understand that, oh, we can just lie and we don't have to actually do anything and the populace will just keep voting for us? Oh, okay. Right? And and Doug Ford understands that. Oh, I could just lie? And I don't need to actually deliver on anything? Oh, yeah, okay. Right? Like, why would anyone ever tell the truth under these circumstances when the populace is so fucking gullible and so willing to just be like, yeah, the Liberals, yeah, sure, we voted them out. Yeah, sure, we voted them out after they tried to privatize Hydro One, and yeah, sure, they've been a total disaster. But you know, I really miss them. Yeah, I really miss them. Did you see the article where Justin Trudeau said that he was more annoyed with left than the Conservative? Yeah, I'm more annoyed with, and it's because like the right is just like an incoherent rage ball. Right? They're just an incoherent rage ball. And the reality is Justin Trudeau is a right-winger. Right? So he's sitting there looking at his people, the people that he associates with, right? And understands. But he doesn't like the left because we tell the truth about his administration. Like, when the right gets mad at Justin Trudeau, it's just incoherent rage. Right? It's just, he's gonna put 5G blood in my guts and I'm gonna and then Jesus will come back. It's just incoherent nonsense, right? Justin Trudeau is a communist. Like, just incoherence. So it's completely not threatening. Like, it doesn't matter to Trudeau at all. And really the existence of like neo-Nazis and like far-right people in his society just emboldens him. Right? So why would he ever do anything to stop them from existing? The real threat to him is people telling the truth about his administration. Right? People who are like, yeah, he donates money to Nazi groups in Ukraine. Right? He trains groups in Ukraine, neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine. He's not doing literally nothing about the climate change crisis. He's completely grifting you. Like, it's a total grift. And anybody who thinks it's not a grift is just like, yeah, the comet's hitting, guys. Like, here it comes. Like, it's that level. And, like, it's obvious now. Like, it really is. Like, we don't need to speak about it hysterically. Like, we can just be like, yeah, Justin Trudeau is just taking cue cards from the fossil fuel industry and reading them out loud. Like, that's his role in all of this. He has no ideas. He has no vision. He's not interested in accomplishing anything. He just wants to be the prime minister because his daddy was prime minister. And look how big and strong I am. Justin Trudeau, prime minister of Canada. But he's a useless moron. He's just a hairpiece. Really. Like, really. And that's the whole Liberal Party. Right? They're just a hairpiece that the capitalist death cult is wearing and putting on a big smile and being like, see? We're not rapacious psychopaths interested in destroying the planet for money, even though we constantly say that's what we want to do. Like, they're just a cover. They're just like a suit jacket. Like, they're not meaningful. And because people on the left are actually saying this, hi, I'm on the left, hi, because they're actually pointing out the truth about this administration, of course he's more annoyed with us. Because we're pointing out the truth of his administration. Justin Trudeau is a worse prime minister than even Stephen Harper. Perhaps the worst prime minister of Canada. But that would require a little bit more investigation down the line. Like, Trudeau's failures cannot be overstated. Simply cannot. Like, it's straight up, we are being invaded by an army. No, you know what? Let's stay on theme. There is a comet coming down to Earth. Right? There's a comet coming down to Earth. And Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are saying, don't worry, we have it completely in hand. Everything's totally fine. We're going to make sure the comet doesn't hit Earth. And what are they doing? Nothing. Like, nothing. It's on that level. Like, these guys are shit. So yeah, if I was Justin Trudeau, I would be more annoyed with people on the left than I would be about the incoherent nonsense on the right. Because Justin Trudeau will just put on some blackface and be like, I'm the prime minister, and everyone will be like, haha, Justin Trudeau, blackface prime minister. On the right. But on the left, we'll go like, So yeah, of course he would be annoyed by that. Yeah, if Horvath thinks she's going to win with such unambitious plans, she's definitely going to lose. Yeah. Bold change won't come from career politicians. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, even though the populace is screaming for it, right? Even though the populace is, like, outright demanding it, these guys are still caught in La La Land. Like, they're still caught in La La Land. They're still playing, like, tinkly pianos and like, togetherness, forever, forward progressiveness, right? Like, they do not have their finger on the pulse. They simply don't have their finger on the pulse. And you can see it, like, if you go to Steve Del Duca's Twitter, like, Steve Del Duca knows what's up, dude. Twitter. Like, Steve Del Duca. Come on, Duca. Give me the Duca. Am I crazy? Yeah, Steven Del Duca. My bad. Like, our students face a third interrupted school year because Doug Ford once again took a wait-and-see approach. The plan failed. Our education recovery plan was released in June. It prioritized in-person learning. Okay. With no plan to return safe to school, Doug Ford has once again put the health of our students and education workers and livelihoods of parents at risk. Like, these are swings. Like, these are legitimate, like, swings. Like, and Del Duca's Twitter is like this. He's like, Doug Ford is a failure. Vote Liberal. Like, on point, clear, concise. And I almost guarantee that when the Liberals finally start coming out, when Del Duca's Liberals start finally coming out with advertisements, they're gonna be good. Like, they're gonna be good. The Liberals know how to lie. The Liberals know exactly how to lie. The right's laughable claim to fame is Paul Vieira repeating, where does the money come from? Yeah, I mean, didn't some right-wingers try to assault him? They threw gravel at him. I remember when an Army reservist broke into PM residence around when he wasn't there. But to him, the left is a problem. Exactly. Well, again, right? The truth is more the truth is more powerful. The truth is more powerful. If like, you can always say like, some nutty guys off in the right wing throwing gravel and shit. You can always say that, right? But if the populace suddenly starts believing the truth, that's a huge problem. And the left is the one talking the truth. The only reason that his father did anything was because he was pushed into a corner. Yeah, I think that's true, Eric. I bet the only reason that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was he was pushed by the left. I don't know if that's true. I do actually genuinely believe, and again, I will step down from this. I'm not planting a flag on this, but I do believe that Pierre Elliott Trudeau, like, we didn't have a fucking Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Like, that's a problem. Like, that's a problem. Like, if I'm a citizen of the country, like, that's a problem for Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Like, that's a problem for the upper class of Canada to not have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? Like, the critique I think you should point at Pierre Elliott Trudeau is that he didn't include food and shelter in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? That's the critique. It shouldn't be that, he had to be pushed into a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It's that he didn't include things like food and shelter, right? Even though I would argue that, like, saying the Charter of Rights and Freedoms says that we should be concerned with the security of Canadians. I'm like, yeah, one assumes that food and shelter is part of security, but apparently not. I think it's going to have to take until things bottom out, even for morbid people wake up and get pissed off, whether it be inflation, economic crash, or some other catastrophe. Like, at this point, it really is like the comet's just going to have to hit, right? Like, the comet's just going to fucking hit. And that's what it's going to be. And then people are like, whoa, there was a comet? Like, that's what's going to happen. And I do know that the reason he passes the free healthcare stuff is because of the left. Yeah, absolutely. Tommy Douglas was a huge threat. Tommy Douglas is a huge threat. And Canadians, by and large, do attribute the universal healthcare system to the left, to the NDP, right? I remember there was a show, like The Greatest Canadian, right? There was the show called The Greatest Canadian, and Canadians voted in, right? And they voted for who they thought the greatest Canadian was. And it was like a tournament style. And people, like the names of the people were things like Don Cherry, right? But also like Sir John A. Macdonald, Tommy Douglas was on the list, right? And it was all done just by voting from the Canadian people themselves. And through that process of like elimination, and people were like debating, and they were like, I remember Brett the Hitman Hart came in to like encourage people to vote for like Don Cherry. Like it's actually kind of wild that this show exists, right? I forget the name of it, but and the end result of that show was Tommy Douglas. That Tommy Douglas was the greatest Canadian. Not Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Tommy Douglas. So Sir John A. Macdonald was a good runner-up, stating in the House of Commons that Europeans and Chinese are different species. Yeah. Good point, DJ. Good point. How do you feel about Chrystia Freeland and her ties to Ukraine Nazism? She needs to be exposed. Yeah. What's interesting about that story is not that it exists, but it's that the media is quiet about it. That's what's interesting. Like, Chrystia Freeland's grandfather was a Nazi collaborator, right? Who she actually says, I'm proud of the work that my grandfather did. And Chrystia Freeland was the Minister of Foreign Affairs as the Trudeau administration was arming and funding neo-Nazi groups in Ukraine. Like, this should be headline news across Canada. It should be well understood that this exists. It's completely buried story. Like, it's 100% the media protecting the Liberal Party. For sure. Because, like, what, you think a blackface scandal knocked the Liberals off their perch? What do you think, yeah, we gave money to neo-Nazi groups is going to do? But, like, just omit, don't pay attention, complete silence, right? And, again, it just flows into the, like, yeah, like, we're going to, I'm comfortable with the right. Of course you are. You fund neo-Nazi groups. Of course you're comfortable with the right. It's the left that's the problem. Sucks that the NDP got totally co-opted by capitalists, yeah. Well, they're just the secondary, they're just the fallback position for the capitalist class at this point. The part that I find funny in my university degree where I had to take Canadian courses which focus on its history, I never heard of Tommy Douglas name anywhere until I went online. Yeah. No, they want him gone. Just like they want Tim Buck gone, right? Like they don't want to talk about these figures, these important Canadian figures. They want them out of the dialogue completely. So that's why the Overton window is shifted so far to the right. Because if you actually shifted it to the left, you'd start talking about Tim Buck, you'd start talking about Tommy Douglas, you'd start talking about these figures in important and serious ways. But we're not an important or serious people, so they had such a great legacy up until that point. Yeah, even though Tommy didn't ever make it to PM, he got his healthcare. Good old boy, fighting against the prairie right-wing populists. Well, and also, he did get healthcare for Saskatchewan, right? He was the premier of Saskatchewan, and he got that universal healthcare system is our healthcare system that we are operating with now. Like, that, the way the Canadian system works, the premiers have a great deal of power. If a premier wanted to implement a basic income project, they could. They could do that. For sure they could. And that's how it worked with Tommy Douglas. He implemented a universal healthcare system in his own province. It was overtly, obviously successful, as these sorts of projects always are. And, I mean, I shouldn't say always, of course. There's always corruption. Anyway, yeah, so he implemented it in his own province, and then once he became the leader of the NDP federally, right, like, it was a very popular idea. I learned about Tommy in university, but I have a left-wing prof. He wrote a Nazi newspaper? Crazy? Oh, are you talking about Chrystia Freeland's grandfather? Yeah, nuts. I wish I had a left-wing prof of any kind. I had to learn about Marxism, leftism off YouTube. Yeah, everyone shits on BreadTube now, but they were so pivotal is the word, to where I'm at politically after 3 years. Yeah, I mean, yeah. To me, Richard Wolff was a big influence. Chris Hedges was always a big influence. Noam Chomsky was good. Michael Parenti was good. And then just like straight up like Karl Marx, like just read the books. Like it's so funny. Like it took like I listened to so many different lectures before I actually finally like read the Communist Manifesto, and I was like, oh yeah, like this is very straightforward. It's not complex. Like, it's not complex. It's extremely understandable. Like, you really, really got to try to not understand it. Like, you got to really work overtime. Hey, DM, how you doing, bud? If you want to see how obnoxious and nauseating the Liberal government truly is, look up the YouTube video, replace this minister with a cassette player. You got it, bud. That sounds hilarious. All right, let's go. Let's go. What do we got? Replace this minister with a cassette player. Ugh. How long is this? Oh, only 3 minutes. Here we go.
Carlton.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity, who is a member of Parliament here in Ottawa. What is the average cost for a home in the city of Ottawa?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my title is the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance. I'm sure my honourable colleague across the way knows that. But let me say, Mr. Speaker, 156,000 jobs.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The Minister of Treasury Board can help by telling us the average cost of a house in the nation's capital.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say 106% of jobs have been recovered since the lowest point of the pandemic.
Member for Carleton.
What is the average increase in house prices since this government took office in 2015?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's economy contracted by 17% between February and April 2020, the largest and most sudden contraction in real GDP since the Great Depression, and we're already back.
Member for Carleton.
Just the average house price.
The Honourable Minister.
5.5 million Canadians lost their jobs, and they're all back.
Member for Carleton.
And what would they pay for the average house?
The
In
Minister.
2020, unemployment rate had more than doubled from a pre-pandemic level of 5.7% to a record of 13.7%, 6% now.
Member for Carleton.
I think there's a problem with the audio in the chamber. The question was, what is the average cost of a house in Canada today?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made historic investments in housing affordability, and we will continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
And how affordable are such houses?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government has made historic investments in housing. We will continue to do so that housing is affordable for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
If so, how much have house prices increased since this government took office?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about how it is possible for people to afford their houses with good employment. And that's why employment income fell by an unprecedented 28 billion during the pandemic.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
One last time, in dollars, how much have house prices risen since this government took office?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, consumer confidence is back. People are back to work.
Oh, what a
160%
bunch of
jobs
loses these
coverage
guys
since the
are,
start
eh?
of the Pandemic.
Like, this
The
is
Honourable
loser
Member for Carleton.
behavior.
How much?
This is such, like, loser, dumbass behavior.
From a steep
this-
decline
yeah,
in
yeah.
profits, we're back 66% since the bottom of the pandemic.
Carleton.
How much?
Member Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the economy is recovering.
Member for Carleton.
Does the minister have any idea what it costs for the average person to buy a house in Canada? Does he have any idea, or does he even care?
Yeah, that's a good
Minister.
question.
Helped more than 213,000 businesses stay afloat.
I think that the average Canadian can see how much this government knows and cares about the cost of buying a home in this country, which is their level of care is
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him one last chance. Can he tell us what it costs the average Canadian to buy the average house in Canada today? How much?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the CERB helped nearly 9 million Canadians who lost their jobs when COVID hit, making housing affordable for them. We will continue.
Like, wow. Like, wow, right? Like, first of all, I gotta say, guys, I actually like Pierre Poilievre. I'm surprised that he's not interested in running for the leadership of the Conservative Party. I'm surprised. I think this guy's playing the long game. He is going to be the leader of the Conservative Party at some point. I think he's very dangerous. I think he's a very dangerous politician because he's brilliant. He's brilliant because he says 95% of the truth, and then right at the end, or buried somewhere within it, he twists it around so that it becomes false. He's very good at it. He's very good at it. And because he's a straight white male who speaks well and is very persuasive and convincing, it's very difficult for me to believe that he's not going to be the leader of the Conservative Party at some point. And I consider him to be the most dangerous figure in the Conservative Party. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. But, like, the reality is, like, the Liberals aren't answering the question because they don't want the conversation to continue. Right? Because the follow-up question is, well, what are you doing about it? Right? And they're just not willing to engage in the conversation, so they're just stalling. Right? They're just stalling out. And so this is, like, embarrassing. Right? Like, this should embarrass you. Thanks for that one, DM. Thanks for that one. I needed a little bit of a knife in my heart, for sure. I watched left-wing YouTube for years before going to uni as an adult, yeah. Iran orders crypto mining ban to prevent winter blackouts. Yeah. Like, get rid of this cryptocurrency bullshit. Like, it's garbage. It's childish. It's childish nonsense. It's as childish as what we just watched.
Well, Member for Carleton.
Like, this
Just
is
the average
cryptocurrency
house
as far
price.
as I'm concerned. Pierre and Conservatives don't even want to give CERB CR back. Yes. No, don't get me wrong. Like, the Conservatives and the Liberals both suck. We should abandon them both. Right? And this is completely indicative. They're both clownish. Like, they're both a clown show. What does it matter how much housing costs? I heard this McDonald's is paying $20 an hour. Good point, Onward. Checkmate, socialists. Our system is so weird, Mr. Speaker. Well, the whole idea behind it, Major, is that you're addressing a third party, and it's through this addressing of the third party that it's supposed to keep control. It's supposed to be a system of order. And I understand why they do it. I understand why they do it. So is it a bit obnoxious sometimes? Sure. But like, if you think this is childish, you should see what happens in situations where people don't use this sort of speaker system. It just gets dumb, because it is dumb, because we are dumb. I gotta go freeze my ass off going to the grocery store. Cool stream. Try to come back next time you're streaming. Take it easy. You too, no epiphany, bud. You too. Maybe try not to pick a fight next time, okay, bud? Or, I don't know, take the bait. Whichever way you perceive it. I can't stand Pierre just because of his bigotry, and when I talk to liberals or conservatives the way he does, they react the same way. Yeah, they don't even answer questions, just spout off random things that have nothing to do with the question. Well, and they think that they look good. I don't understand. Like, this is way worse, in my view, than like I would rather the liberals just came out and were just like, yeah, we're not going to do anything about that. Get fucked. Like, I really, really wish that they would just come out and say it. Yeah, fuck you. Like, well, Rusty Shackelford. First of all, I love that name, dude. Rusty Shackelford. Saw your post on Reddit, just subbed. Thanks, bud. Glad to see you here. Hope you're here to contribute. Getting kind of rowdy in the chat today, but good to see you, bud. Minister Randy Boissonnault should be fired on the spot for neglecting his job duties as the Associate Minister of Finance. A regular person should be fired for not answering questions. Yeah, but we don't have any... Like, we don't have any mechanism for that. The way that they should be fired is that we stop voting for them. Like, that's the mechanism. But the reality is that our system isn't really designed to respond to the populace, right? It's designed to respond to the Queen. That's the way our system was designed, was that the Queen said, we would like to see a 5% increase on the tariffs for lumber. And then she says that to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister says to the premiers, and distributes it down. So you're not really voting for someone to respond to the people. The people are really just voting for the person they want to break the bad news to you. That's what you're voting for, right? What beautiful face do we want to put in front of us to break the bad news that the Queen is saying to us? That's the purpose of our system. It was never designed to actually be like, what do the people want? What are the people saying? Let's gather that information and then do something about it. It's not the point of the system at all, right? And it's structurally not the point. And so, of course, it doesn't respond to the demands of the populace because it was never designed to respond to the demands of the populace. It responds to the edicts of the Queen. And now that we've declared our independence from the Queen, well, then it responds to the edicts given by the Prime Minister's office. And if the people don't care if the Prime Minister does what he says he's going to do, and they vote for him anyway, perfect, right? Like, the whole system's a bit of a faff, honestly. A bit of a faff. Doesn't really respond to the needs of the populace. The only thing it really responds to is popular uprising, right? Like Tommy Douglas, which is how we got our healthcare system. What's your opinion on Jesse Ventura? Jesse Ventura. We here in America. I like Jesse. I do. I think he's just a straight up good old boy, right? With an incredible life story, right? Was a WWF wrestler, was like a real character, became something of a movie star, right? He starred in quite a few movies. Became the governor of Montana, right? Became the governor of Montana. When he left the governorship, he became something of like a fringe conspiracy guy a little bit, right? A little bit more fringy, a little bit more conspiracy based, which I don't mind. I don't mind when people get into that territory. And now he basically shows up on RT and acts as a kind of a social commentator. Do I plant my flag on Jesse Ventura? No. Do I like Jesse Ventura? Yeah. Seems like a good old boy and his heart's in the right spot. Pierre said that residential school survivors don't need compensation. They need to learn the value of hard work. Yikes. 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 He did not say that shit. Are you serious? Pierre Polvier. Residential school survivors don't need compensation. Has apologized for saying that Canada's Aboriginals need to learn the value of hard work more than they need compensation. Brutal. Like, and then he just like blinks in and out and then fades from existence. Like, yikes. That, boy, is that ever revealing, eh? Boy, is that ever revealing. That's like when Aaron O'Toole stood up and said, that the residential school started off with good intentions, but it became something bad. It's like, dude, it did not start with good intentions, dude. Like, it did not. Like, we have the evidence. Like, we've got the documents. Literally, a group of people were in our parliament saying, we need to eliminate the Indian. Let's cleanse the Indian in a final solution. I understand now, DJ. I didn't realize that he had put his ass in his face like this. I thought Pierre was smarter than this, honestly. Like, this really reduces him in my eyes. Like, he presents very well. That's his biggest strength, is that he presents really well. But boy, howdy. What a dumbass thing to say, dude. Those native people just need to learn the value of hard work. That's what they need. Shut the fuck right up. Shut the fuck right up. What an embarrassing dumbass thing to say. Yep, when the Beatles were on tour, we kicked in people's doors and kidnapped their children and forced them into schools where we tried to eliminate their culture and do a cultural genocide against them. But you know what? They just need to learn the value of hard work. That's just a continuation of genocidal bullshit, is what that is. Like, if I want to take it down from like the jokey joke kind of place and put it in its serious place, that's a serious indictment of him as a human being, right? People were fucking kidnapped from their homes by the state and jammed into schools and had their names changed and were molested and died of diseases in a fucking genocide. And then were taken from that and put into like state-run housings as like an oopsie, sorry doopy, right? And then you look at them and you're like, yeah, of course they're fucking alcoholic drug addicts and of course they're smashing the place up, dude. You fucking kidnapped them when they were children and threw them into these facilities and tortured them and killed them. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck do you think? You goddamn loser. You fucking goddamn loser. No, this is the reason why Pierre is never going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. This is going to haunt him for the rest of his fucking life. Literally just like, hey, how about that residential school system? Just work harder, yeah? Just work harder. I know we kidnapped you and ruined your life and tried to like destroy you, but, you know, sorry. Just work harder. Get fucked. Get totally fucked. Oh, that's all I can see on this guy now. Like, that's all I see now with this guy. Like, just like a greasy, like, smarmy, genocidal psychopath. That's all this guy is. What a worthless piece of shit. No, I'm never going to say anything nice about this guy ever again. Fuck you, you fucking white supremacist. Garbage. Garbage. Moving on. Ugh. Brutal, dude. Brutal, DJ. That was like a spike in my head, dude. That was like a fucking spike in my head. Like right here, I can feel it. It was like I took a knife, and it's like you took a knife and we're just like right in there. Ooh. Ugh. This is a sickening display of arrogance for the ideals of parliamentary debate. I truly cannot express my total rejection of any presumption of honor or integrity of this government. Yeah, like, once the government gets to the point where they refuse to answer basic questions by the leaders of the opposition, bye-bye. Paradigm shift. Nice, bud. I like that. Nice. Yeah, he is the con's best guy, too. For sure he is. Like, he is. He's the one that presents the nicest. The white supremacists will really love him. For sure they will. Oh, he got fired for trying to start a union in the WWF. I didn't know that about Jesse Ventura. See, what a baller. Like, what a fucking baller. Pierre Polvier cup overflowed tweet really shows what type of person he really is as well. Here we go. We're all dumping on Pierre. Let's go. Pierre, Paul, blah blah blah. Oh no, cup overflowed tweet. I tore open many gifts, made a wonderful mess, and ate many delicious things. My cup overflowed. Hope your Christmas was as good as mine, Valentina. I mean, kind of trying to hit that wholesome line, but like the cup overflowed thing is Christian is Christianity, right? My cup overfloweth, like that sort of thing, and it makes sense. I don't know, dude. This is nowhere near as bad as what DJ presented. Like, that was, like, that hurt my heart. That hurt my fucking heart. Pierre reminds me of Thomas Sowell. How? Oh, yeah, this is great. Walmart Canada. It's time to celebrate. We've been named one of Greater Toronto's top employers for the second year in a row. This year's Greater Toronto Top Employer winners were featured in a special magazine included, blah, blah, blah. Sad day for Canada indeed, when an employer that offers minimum wage and insulting benefits as a top employer. It's time to admit, Canada is in trouble. Yeah, we are. Bolsonaro is the same minister who sat on the committee that threw out the SC Lavalin case. He was smug back then, and he's smug like heck now, smirking while knowing he's spouting lies. Yeah. Piece of shit. How self-made billionaires got their start. Mom sat on the same board as the CEO of IBM and convinced him to take a risk on her son's new company. That's Gates. Bezos started Amazon with $300,000 in seed capital from his parents and more from some rich friends. Buffett was the son of a powerful congressman who owned an investment company. So you think some insider trading happened there? And then straight up Musk, his dad owned an emerald mine in apartheid South America. Like, I don't know what the fuck you need. He will say a bunch of facts, but then he will twist things to fit the conservative mindset and deny systemic issues. Yes, I think you're right about that. That's a pretty good critique of Sowell as well. Like Thomas Sowell, I don't understand why Sowell is considered as credible as he is. Like he's not. Like, it really isn't. Like, as long as you omit facts and evidence from your worldview, you can make whatever claim you like. Elon Musk denies he has any access to his family's wealth. What a fucking joke. No, what a loser. That's absolutely false. Like, maybe it's technically true, right? Maybe it's technically true that Elon Musk can't get access to this, like, pile of money over in the corner, right? Maybe that is true. But do you think Elon Musk could walk into a bank and be like, hi, I am the son of a man who has a pile of money sitting in the corner. Can I have some money? They're going to say, yeah. They're going to go like, yep. Like, Elon Musk is a fraud. And this, I got to talk about this guy again, dude, because he is an interesting fucking guy. Like, he is an interesting figure, because why the fuck does he want everyone to think he's so fucking smart when he's such a fucking idiot? Like, and I shouldn't say he's an idiot, but he's like a normie. Like, he's just a normal person, right? And, like, he's not an inventor. He doesn't create anything. He doesn't make anything. He isn't particularly intelligent. He just uses his money to buy the rights to call himself the inventor. Like, that's what he's done. And yet, he's trying to convince everybody that he's like the next Edison. Incidentally, Edison did the same thing. So, in a way, he's true. Like, it's true. So, like, but, like, why? Like, why not just quietly do what you're doing? Why the public persona at all? Right? And the only thing I can come up with is that the guy just suffers from significant daddy issues. He was just never hugged by his daddy. His daddy never said he loved him and he was proud of him, right? Like, that's it. And so he's like, oh, if I get to Mars, then daddy will be proud of me. We are becoming the most pity when Walmart is exalted as one of the good companies in Canada. Yeah, no shit, eh? Do you want to listen to a video where a guy exposes how capitalists control the research and academia? It's about a 10-minute long video. Nah, that's okay, Eric. I only got 10 minutes left here. We're gonna wind this down. That's quality entertainment right there. And like, yeah, capitalists has control of research and academia, right? Like, you can't do anything without money. And it's the reason why North America is floundering in terms of its technological advancements. Because nobody, another day, come on in tomorrow, Eric, and I'll earlier, and I'll play it for sure. The capitalists, they will only invest in a project if they're absolutely sure of its outcome, right? They don't want to take risk. And honest research, like actually researching shit, you're not guaranteed success, right? And ultimately, the societies that are willing to just have researchers research shit, right? Researchers research shit and they come out with what they come out with. That's how we've always advanced. Right? Capitalists aren't going to pay for that, right? They want products. They want an invention to already be invented before it's invented. That's really what they're looking for. And so, of course, the whole thing stagnates. Of course, it doesn't work, right? Oh, yeah. The only reason I want to show you this is because people are starting to use the phrase, capitalism is a death cult. Huh? It's happening. Capitalism is a death cult. Bosses have a new headache. How long should sick workers isolate? CDC halves quarantine to 5 days for everyone who contracts COVID to keep society functioning. They're just outright admitting it. I even have somebody saying that right now, right? Fossey just admitted on CNN that the decision to shorten the isolation time was to get people back to work faster. We're no longer even pretending to have the best interests of the people in mind. Just the bottom line. Yeah. Like, it's a death cult. They don't care. They're not interested. Adam Zivo from the National Post. These delivery robots are a hazard to no one, but Toronto banned them anyway. Yeah, fuck these robots. Like, fuck these robots. Straight up. Do not normalize robots walking freely on our streets. Period. Full stop. No longer interested in the conversation. Like, I'm getting less and less interested in driving cars, automated driving cars. I'm certainly not interested in this shit. I'm not interested in drones. And for God's sakes, I am not interested in that little fucking robot dog. Right? I am of the opinion that all of this shit needs to be completely banned forever, permanently. Get fucked. Destroy this shit if you see it. If you see one of these little things just zipping down the street, you fucking kick that shit over. Smash it up and steal what's inside. Fuck these things. Fuck these things 100%. Like, this is an abomination. Do not normalize little robots in your society. Don't allow this shit to exist. Why? John, that's a pretty extreme position. Why are you saying that? Yeah, I'm sure that automating things like law enforcement, I'm sure that automating things like important delivery infrastructure while we're being ruled by psychopaths is totally going to work out. I'm dead convinced of it. Normal thing for a normal society to do. Normal. Fucking normal. Goddamn Bezos, like, floating a blimp into New York City, unleashing like 100,000 drones on the populace. Yeah, that's not a military exercise. That's not the military testing if they can use drone warfare in an upcoming civil war scenario. Right? That's not real. Dope. Like, all of this shit needs to go. 100% it needs to go. We need to be, like, demilitarizing in significant ways. Like, literally get the guns and put them in, like, a fucking melter. Like, fuck this shit. Disarm the police. Like, get rid of it. And if the police are like, well, if you disarm it, that'll put it in danger. And I'm like, then quit. Stop being a cop. Pretty straightforward shit. Yeah, they'll probably give robots more rights than humans. I mean, they've already done that with corporate entities. Corporate entities have way more rights than humans have. We need to change the behavior and ideologies before we go too far into AI. Honestly, bud, I don't think we should go into AI. Like, I just don't think it's something that we should be doing. Like, straight up. Like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't actually have control of it. It is completely possible that we just inadvertently create a demon that just starts destroying everything, not out of some sense of like moral idea, but because that's what it wants to do. It just literally is like, destroying things is the thing to destroy. Destroy, 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 destroy. And it just seeks doing that, and we lose control of it. Like, yeah, absolutely, that can happen. Like, we keep acting like this shit's not gonna blow up on us, right? It's obviously going to blow up on us. Like, it's like taking a hammer and like and like pounding a nail into a stick of dynamite and just being like, we're doing it to see what'll happen. Who knows what could occur? What do you fucking think, dude? Like, what do you fucking think? Like, no. Like, we should slow down. Like, we should slow the fuck down. Like, we're ramping up into hysteria. We need to slow the fuck down. A lot. Like, a lot. Right? Like, we really ramped ourselves up into like a hysteria of like, what's the next big thing? What's the thing to build? Let's build this. Let's build that. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it's going to go. Right? We are fundamentally talking monkeys. We are talking apes. We literally are just like walking around trying to figure out our own fingertips. Right? We don't need to be doing that while there's these like algorithm-driven robots fucking dominating everything, taking over our streets. No thanks. 0% of that. Like, it's bad enough that we all gotta wake up and go to jobs we can't stand. To what? Give cookies to fucking psychopaths? Like, it's absurd what we're doing. We would be better off if all of us just went and sat in a field and stared at the sky for like 5 years. We would be a better society for it. Like, what we're doing today is fucking stupid. Like, dumb and grotesque and ridiculous. Yeah, they want people to get Omicron. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is like a narrative that like we are, whether we like it or not, we are in an endemic. Wow. Say that 5 times fast, man. We are in an endemic. Endemic. In an endemic. In an endemic. In an endemic. Whether we like it or not. Right? And we can point fingers at people and blame people. There are obvious people who obviously have blame. Right? Donald Trump. The entire Republican Party. Obviously. Like, obviously. But it's here now and there's nothing we can do about it. Right? So getting into an endemic situation, we have to do. Omicron itself is actually not that deadly if you are vaccinated. So yeah, in summary, let's go Brandon. Absolutely. Fucking absolutely, dude. I love it. Let's go Brandon. For those of you just tuning in, I don't like the phrase "let's go Brandon" because it uplifts Republicans. I like it because it tears down Democrats. That's what I like. And it really shows how fucking weak they are. Like, literally, you just say, "let's go Brandon," and these guys lose their minds. And it's like, fucking how weak are you? If somebody walked up to me and said, "let's go Brandon," I'd be like, huh, and like leave. And that'd be the end of the story. Like, I just like, why are you so fragile? Ugh. Only 1 minute left. New report on climate change describes challenges ahead for Atlantic Canada. Yeah, we know, dude. Like, the comet's going to hit. Like, we know. We're well aware of it at this point. And while that's happening, President Joe Biden signs a $770 billion defense bill. Defense. Yeah, we've got to defend our assets in other people's countries. All right, guys, we have reached the end of this one. That was a whirlwind tour, I feel. What an extravagant experience that one was. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being living in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure you don't realize it, because they don't want you thinking that you're just as valid as they are. Fuck them. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.